everyone, and welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. 'Tis I, Captain Logan. And look, it's my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez.
'Tis I, 'tis we.
'Tis us, even. I guess that's the grammatically correct way to say that, yeah. Welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. What's up?
What is up, guys?
What's happening? How you doing, man?
We're talking over each other. That's what's happening.
Yeah, we're off to a wonderful start. Tonight, as always, we are going to take your questions for a full hour. We've also got some news topics to discuss, a little bit more than normal. Lately on the show, I've often been coming in with a lead story to discuss for about 10 minutes and then taking a lot of questions. Tonight, we've got 3 of those, so feel free as we're talking about those to throw in follow-up questions or to rebut anything I'm saying that you don't agree with, or to bring up topics that are related to that so that we can keep you guys part of the conversation as we go through it. It would be really easy tonight with the topics that I have to discuss for me to just, for a full hour, chat at you guys and have no audience interaction whatsoever. But I don't want to do that. My name might be in the title, but this is as much about the conversation that I have with you guys and with DJ as it is just me being all self-aggrandizing and throwing my name in a title. So we're going to chat tonight about Power Rangers and the potential of Hasbro getting away from Toei and no longer using Sentai footage in Power Rangers. We don't know if that's happening for sure, but there's a rumor / possibly news story about that that I want to talk about, and a couple other Hasbro-related Power Rangers things I want to chat about. We will discuss the Lower Decks trailer, which just dropped a couple of days ago, the new animated series on CBS All Access that drops next month, and we're going to talk about the I almost said proposed, but I think this is actually definitely happening. The for once, a thing that we can actually be sure about that we're chatting about, DJ, the HBO spin-off of Robert Pattinson's Batman movie that's going to feature the police of Gotham, be kind of a Gotham Central thing. It sounds like we're going to chat about that as well. So welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. I see a lot of folks in the comments there. There's Blue Dragon 5. Rohith Dahar is here. Stussy. Daniel Davis. Mutale is there. Matthew Bass. Good to see everybody. We are just going to go ahead and blow right through some things, jump right into it. So if you have any questions for us for the show this evening, we will get to as many pre-written things as humanly possible as always. So just tag DJ in the comments live and he will be compiling them. And don't worry necessarily if we don't get to everything tonight, because DJ has been compiling every question that has ever been asked, going all the way back to the very beginning. And soon we're going to be going back through some of those old questions in a show, or I suspect a series of shows. Could you imagine, DJ, the multi-topic extravaganza of the Captain Logan Show? I think that's going to happen. So
the multi-topic extravaganza of the Captain Logan archives.
So it isn't, yeah, get your mind around that. So it is very likely that some of the questions that you've asked all those days and months and maybe even years ago could pop up in the not too distant future. If you want to make sure that your question or comment gets read and discussed on air, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount. We are mostly funded by the Geekvolution audience, and we certainly appreciate any help you want to give us in that way. And of course, that makes absolutely certain that your voice is heard, but don't feel like you have to do that. We'll get to as much pre-written as we can. DJ, let's start with Power Rangers, because that's a thing that you know and care about. And so here's the deal. There is a news story that came up on the Illuminerd, Illuminerd, almost said Illuminerdy, but it's not. And that's what I thought. If it was that, it'd be easier to say. It's the Illuminerd. No, it is the Illuminerdy. There it is. The Illuminerdy.com. I have never heard of this before, but according to some folks that I've been chatting with while I've been playing the Power Rangers miniatures game, this is a website that has actually talked about Power Rangers stuff before that nobody else was bringing up and been right about it. So there could be credence to this. It's hard to say. This does not sound crazy far-fetched to me, but they have reported, and this is the only site that has, the only other stuff reporting on this and talking about it are linking to this article, and it's mostly just YouTube videos, just yahoos like me sitting in a chair and going, "Did you hear about this?" So I just want to say that there's no telling if this is really real or not, but I will not be entirely surprised if this turns out to be the case. Hasbro, according to this article, is going to end its partnership with Toei, which is the company that makes Sentai, Super Sentai, and has been going all the way back to, I think, the late 70s, early 80s. And, of course, Power Rangers is a show that is a hodgepodge of footage that is made here and footage from that show. And it's adapted from there, and then we make stories around their stories. And this has been the tradition going all the way back to 1992 and 92, 93 when Mighty Morphin starts. And if this is true, it means that we are ending that tradition, and who knows what we're going to be doing moving forward with Hasbro. And some fans are really nervous about this. I don't want to see that tradition end. I am of a couple of minds about it, but first I want to talk about why this might be happening. I think that Hasbro is taking a look at the brand and saying the interest in Power Rangers is much more in the adults and their children, the adults that grew up with that show, and than it is maybe the 2 to 6 year olds that the show has always been aimed at. And if 2 sounds like a low number, go and look at I don't have this for you right now, but there's an interview I read recently with the new showrunner for Power Rangers that said that is their main demographic, 2 to 6 year olds. Wow. So it's not just me saying that. The people that make Power Rangers are intentionally aiming it at 2 to 6 year olds, or so they think. But there is this kind of identity crisis with Power Rangers, this kind of question of who exactly is this for, right? Because it has such a long track record, and it's this really long continuity, extremely loose continuity, that it doesn't keep up with itself real well, but everything kind of counts in one way or another. We've done what a lot of other things have done now, where we had to kind of create a multiverse in order to make that work, but and we've done this a couple of times, roping things in a multiversal way to make it all kind of coalesce and go together. I'm not saying that Hasbro, to be clear, if they decide to do this, is doing it in order to get away from continuity because it's too complicated and too muddled. I don't think it's that kind of situation. I think I don't think it's that like DC Crisis kind of situation. I think it's because the ratings are probably not what they wish they were, and they want to focus more on where the really devoted fandom is, which is a much older crowd. And I think they're looking at, this is my guess, and this article suggested something similar. I think that they're looking at the comics and they're looking at who's buying the toys primarily, because and how well the throwback adult stuff, the legacy stuff has done in the past, and they're going, that's our audience. And so this article suggests that maybe they want to do something like go to animation and make a show for older fans that wouldn't necessarily be like Power/Rangers, DJ. Wouldn't be like a rated R, really hardcore Power Rangers thing, but would be more like the comics are, where I let my kids read the comics, but there's actual violence in those stories in a way there's not in the TV show, and it's it deals with more adult themes, and there's more character dimension and stuff. I'm very much of two minds on this. It is a really neat tradition that we've only had 1 year without, and it would be kind of sad to see that end. But if it can't get more creative and it can't find the spark again, I would much rather this happen than just a lot more of the same, because I don't regularly keep up with current Power Rangers. This newer show has been better, although I've heard nothing but not great things about Beast Morphers Season 2, and I reviewed the crossover, which was terrible. But like, it might be, if they have the right project in mind, it might be the right time for that to happen, and they may be smart about it. I would have preferred both things, at the same time. Keep the show for 2 to 6 year olds, and, maybe make it a little bit more clever and a little bit more creative, for those kids, if nothing else, certainly. This isn't just about me liking Power Rangers. I don't want a bunch of just least common denominator, like, not actually challenging my kids kinds of entertainment. It would be cool if, even for that crowd, Power Rangers could get a tad more sophisticated. But it would be nice to have that, because that's what it's always been, with something that's more aimed at us diehard fans that have seen it more sophisticated in other media and would love to see that on television. DJ, I think if this happens, what we will end up with is Draken the series. I think they're going to look at the comics and they're going to go, well, that's the ticket now, and that's what the fans really want to see, and I could see that succeeding, or I could see it totally bombing. It really just depends on how they handle it. But what do you think about this if it turns out to be the case, DJ? And what do you want to see from it if they cancel Power Rangers as the thing it is?
Yeah, it's very weird. I'm still like you. I don't really know how I feel about it. I have mixed feelings. Stussy says he really wants to see animated Power Rangers. He said that a while ago before we started talking about it. Mr. Roboto says Power Rangers is best live action. So I don't know. You know how I like the main reason I grew up watching Power Rangers was because I liked watching the martial artists, and I liked that they actually cast martial artists, and we got to see some cool stuff, especially in the later seasons. As we learned in Morphin Mania, the first few seasons are not that great, or the first season, the second, third season, it starts getting better with the action that we actually shot here. But yeah, I liked watching that stuff, and that's not going to have the same effect on me in animation.
That's fair.
You don't get to see the cool stunts that they put together in the fight scenes and stuff. But also, I haven't been watching the new stuff either, like you, so I wouldn't really miss it, because we haven't been keeping up at all. So but I'm with you. I don't know why they couldn't just have multiple iterations going simultaneously. What's the harm in that?
It makes me wonder if it's taken a real hit in the last few years, and why exactly, like, Saban kept it going. Like, I think maybe just as a toy commercial, and I think Hasbro has bigger sights than just selling toys, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not doing well, it makes sense that they would just stop it. It might not be for any, like, other motive.
Because I haven't checked up on ratings, but I'm wondering if this has not been a problem for a long time, that Power Rangers just doesn't sell the way it used to, and it makes just enough money. Kind of like the DC direct-to-video animated movies, right? It makes just enough money to keep going, but nobody's really actually actively looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously out of the loop. I'm 28 years old, but I think I'm 28, 27, 28. I obviously out of the loop. I don't know what kids are watching these days. I imagine it's not. I imagine it can't be as big as it was even during the Disney era. I imagine it was bigger then.
Yeah, and I just don't see as much merchandise with kids walking around. Jason's friends don't really talk about Power Rangers. So this might be a really smart move for them, but here's what's interesting. They clearly thought that there was a lot of potential with this franchise. There's no way that Hasbro buys Power Rangers and then goes, oh, wait, this is how it's doing on TV?
Yeah,
okay,
so weird.
I think they knew.
They had to have known that before they bought it. Like, that's what's so weird about it.
Well, and this speaks to... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if this is true, that seems like a huge... This seems like they would have had to have planned this. They couldn't have just, they haven't even made a season yet. Because you said that the last season was mostly done before they even acquired it, right?
Yeah, it had to have been. And that's what I was going to say, is that speaks to what I think is more than a theory, that they didn't have a whole lot to do with that season. Because when that came out and was a little bit better, a lot of fans were like, oh, yay, this is what we're getting from Hasbro. And I'm like, but guys, look at the timeline. There's some lead-in time for making a TV show. They couldn't have had all that much to do with that. They were able to get in on the back back in and start getting some of the figures for that show in the Lightning collection. But that doesn't mean that they had all that much creative influence on that show. I'm not sure how we got so lucky in that first season that it was as much better than Ninja Steel and Megaforce and Dino Charge, because I think it was head and shoulders above those shows. Certainly casting wise, I think it was a lot better than those. But I don't know, it might have just been Judd Lin liking the Sentai footage and getting a spark and having cooler ideas, because he has seemed burnt out to me. And well, it's hard to say how much of it's him being burnt out and how much of it is mandates from on high, but his heart's not been in it. It doesn't feel like to me, just looking at his scripts. It's hard to say if I'm right about that. And he's getting out now, or he's going to be like a consultant now, but he's not the main showrunner anymore, going into Dino Fury, which is an extremely generic looking thing where it's like, well, they did dinosaurs again, and so we're going to use that, even though there's other Sentais that we could have gone back to that we haven't adapted yet, and even though this will be like the fourth time we've done dinosaurs, not too long after Dino Charge, and let's just pair it with a word that we've used before, fury. That drives me crazy. It doesn't make me quite furious. It would be stupid to be furious about a thing like this regarding Power Rangers, but it makes me slightly irritated. And I don't know, it might be time to finally let the thing die, but it's going to be really curious to see what they do with it moving forward. There's a related article that I want to talk about now. So apparently, a former HBO executive who had a lot of influence in HBO for years and years has been hired, this is according to Game Rant, has been hired to oversee Power Rangers, Transformers, and other Hasbro franchises. There's been rumors for a long time about a Hasbro shared universe, and this is the guy who greenlit major shows like Game of Thrones and True Detective and Silicon Valley. Wow. This guy having influence on what would happen with the future of all things, of all things Power Rangers is fascinating to me and can be nothing but good news. I think that sounds amazing. We could get really smart, sophisticated Power Rangers under this guy, or he could not understand the franchise at all and it could completely tank. But this is a guy who has a reputation for hiring the right people and putting them in places, not for making the creative decisions himself. And HBO's big claim to fame and why they're so appreciated by a lot of fans, why they have a good reputation is because they tend to let creators do what they do, and they just get the right products, projects off the ground, and then they get hands off. And if he's allowed to do that under Hasbro, and from what little I have heard about the way Hasbro works with other companies, including Renegade Studios, which again makes the miniatures game, that is probably what will happen. They will probably be hands off and just let creative people be creative. So DJ, this sounds amazing to me. I hope it ends up being the case.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we're not going to get Japanese martial arts action in the show, then I would be. If it's going to be more sophisticated and an actual show, then I would definitely be. That's a good enough trade-off for me to lose kind of the history and the heritage of where the show started from.
And then the other thing about Power Rangers that I wanted to mention real quick is that, and this apparently, I just realized this, because I hadn't read this part of this article yet, but this is from MovieWeb, but this also apparently was initially reported by the Illuminati. Illuminati. So again,
something fishy here.
Hard to say how much of this is true because it's all coming from them in the first place. But like I said, I have talked to some folks that have said that this is likely above board because they have called stuff with Power Rangers before. But this claims then, and you and I have been hearing this rumor a lot, DJ. DJ and I have talked about this, that the planned HBO, or not HBO, the planned reboot for Power Rangers is supposed to actually take place within continuity, and that whole 90s time travel thing, if that's still the premise, is apparently supposed to be kids from present day getting sent back in time to become Rangers, but it would be within the continuity that we have established already, which is wild. I also think that it's somewhat ironic that they're using this picture, which is from a movie that is not in continuity at all.
The only thing Power Rangers, besides Power/Rangers, that's not in continuity.
In 2017.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's hilarious. But yeah, so interesting that it sounds to me, if all of this is true, DJ, that they are going with the same strategy that Boom has been, right? Where everything kind of counts, except for, like you said, the couple projects that just can't. And so, interesting that if this is all true, that they might end the Sentai stuff, like their partnership with the Sentai stuff, but not to reboot. Just, that's not how we're making it anymore.
Yeah, it's so weird. And I don't even know what, like you said, we don't even know. This could all be fake tomorrow. We could find out. So I have no idea what to think about this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Does anyone care about this? Is it just us talking into the void?
There's some folks in the comments that have been talking about this, but I am really curious to see, of course, where all of this ends up going, and it's going to be really sad if Hasbro can't do a better job than Lionsgate did with their movie and then Saban has with the TV franchise, but all signs are pointing to like this synergy with the way Boom has been handling things. Look at so a couple of things real quick before we get off this topic. I had a lot to say about this. So,
yeah.
There have been a lot of projects lately in different mediums, in different media regarding Power Rangers that have all had the word grid in them. That is by design, and have also all included a lot of comic books iconography and stuff from that. From their, the new lore that they've given us, right? So, like, you've been seeing the, Mastodon Sentries and everything, and Draken has been in everything, and that's because Shattered Grid was relatively popular, and a lot of people bought that book, even if they didn't read it, and so you've got, Battle for the Grid in the comics, or excuse me, in the video game, and you've got Heroes of the Grid, which is the miniatures game, like we keep using that. There's this synergy that's kind of building. And Hasbro acquired the license, acquired Power Rangers, acquired Saban, after all this started happening, and they haven't ended any of it. And they've been continuing to add to it. The guys who made the miniatures game said that they were really kind of worried and uncertain about what their future would be, and they said that Hasbro has been a better partner even than Saban was, and has been, nothing but helpful and behind them the whole way. They believe in this brand. And that tells me that, in really believing in the stuff that they've been doing lately, that they want to give more stuff to the adult fans. And they want to turn Power Rangers into more of like an MCU kind of thing where it's superheroes, but for, adults, if not families at large. So I would not be surprised if a lot of that was more than just rumor.
No, it's definitely the time. It's definitely the time for it. More so than any other time, I think, because when Power Rangers was at its biggest, it was mainly for kids, exclusively for kids.
Yeah, of course, sure.
But yeah, it's in a very different place now, the franchise, and that might have been what Hasbro was foreseeing when they decided to purchase it.
I also wonder if they didn't look at the 2017 movie and go, you guys were this close. Like, you kind of had the right idea, but you were just missing the mark a little bit.
Yeah, what's the deal with the new movie? What studio's producing that?
Is
it still Paramount?
No, it's Paramount. Yeah.
Okay, so they just distribute whoever has the rights to make the movie, I guess.
Well, no, Lionsgate made the last one.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Paramount. It was Lionsgate. Yeah. But Hasbro is connected to Paramount because they made the Transformers movies. So if Transformers gets full on rebooted, eventually it's going to be still distributed by the same company. It's still going to be the same studio.
Wow.
And as far as the whole shared universe idea goes, I don't really have any problem with the notion of Power Rangers crossing into some of that other stuff, if it's good. Like, I think it's really easy to cross Power Rangers and other things. It is not. I think Power Rangers is the easiest possible product to do that with. To go, well, yeah, they're in Angel Grove fighting all these monsters. and then these other things are also happening. Like G.I. Joe can exist in the Power Rangers universe. Like you don't even have to go multidimensional. As you know, DJ, we did this with Ninja Turtles in space, and it kind of makes sense. Like it's weird that they know who the Ninja Turtles are, but I don't have any problem with it. Like even like Rob exists, and like just everything exists.
Yeah, I mean they never leave Angel Grove except for the one time they go to Australia. So. There's like nothing else. They could not know anything. Apparently, the viewing globe doesn't see any trouble that happens anywhere else in the world.
Well, and I like the idea that Rita and Zed or both or whatever the villain is might fight the Power Rangers for a while and finally come up with their like final solution and just send like everything down. And now the Power Rangers need like the Transformers and G.I. Joe and like everyone to come and help. Like I have no problem with that.
Well,
that could be really fun.
We got a good question from Daniel Davis saying, "Hey Cap, if Power Rangers had to end for good, how would you like to see it end? I personally think a big alternate epic battle of sorts is the way to go."
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of what you're talking about there with the big crossover.
I mean, obviously you have to end on a high note. Power Rangers can't have like a sad ending. So I mean, it's got to be. The problem is that we already did at the end of the Zordon era the ending that you'd want, which is for that series, the whole sappy like Zordon dies, and by doing that, all the villains turn good. Is kind of you've kind of done it already. Like I don't know where you go from there.
I mean, Megaforce did it too, but did it much worse. Sentai did, like, every single Ranger from, like, all 16 seasons or whatever at the time all came back in that one show. It'd be weird to do that again.
We keep giving it the send-off it should probably have. And, like, you can certainly do that better, but anything you do is just going to be the same thing we did again, but we finally actually end it this time.
Yeah, it's just that, but more.
Yeah, but more. Yeah, we just keep updating that battle. What do they call it? The legendary battle. We just keep updating the legendary battle. It's like you've seen this, but not with the last 4 seasons of Rangers.
Speaking of, before we get off this topic, I'm kind of bummed that if this is the ending, that this is the ending because those suits look terrible.
Eric likes them
so bad. Really?
I'm not in love with it. Yeah, it's okay.
I don't find anything appealing about them. The helmets look so... And Power Rangers has been getting more and more, like, plastic junky looking. Like, their weapons look more and more like toys every year. And I know that's not our fault. That's the Japanese fault. But I'm just judging on what I'm looking at here. And those helmets just look like plastic knight helmets that you would get from a Halloween store.
You're right. That is what they look like. But they've got, but at least a couple of them have like kind of, they just pop off the sides. I thought they had like swords like horns on the sides. But it's just like 3D. It just pops out a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. They look so weird. I do like the idea that they have a green and a black in this season and not a yellow. That's kind of cool. I kind of wish
that's the Zeo scheme.
There's a yellow.
Oh no, it's not because there wasn't a Black Ranger in Zeo. No, it is different.
Yeah. It's the only one that I'm aware of that has all 5 but has no yellow.
Oh yeah, that's weird. No, I think there is another season without yellow, but I forget. I mean, there's like 28 seasons. I can't keep them all straight.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any of the Neo Saban stuff, so I'm not sure. But
do we have any other questions regarding this topic?
Tommy is Zordon before he became Zordon from Mr. Roboto. I don't know. That's a can of worms. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I don't either.
Stephen Murphy says I'd rather see whatever that thing was that Cap was pitching.
Yeah, someday I'm gonna write that.
Mutali says DJ hates the Japanese. He also says Eric likes a lot of weird stuff.
Well, that one of those things is true. I don't think DJ hates the Japanese.
I hate this very specific design.
If he did, we probably wouldn't admit it on the channel. But I don't think that's true. I don't think DJ is just like, Japanese things are stupid.
The Cops and Robbers Sentai season would have been interesting in Power Rangers with 2 different teams and all that stuff. Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I wish we'd done that.
Yeah, hot take. Zordon is Zordon and not a mystery character. I don't know what Edward Bedor is talking about there, but yeah. And then Alex Barron says cancel DJ. Hashtag cancel DJ. So yeah,
oh,
everyone is ready to move on from this topic.
Cancel culture has has wended its way into the Captain Logan show. Yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening with this and talk about it more down the road as this all develops. But it's a fascinating time to be a Power Rangers fan, and specifically an adult Power Rangers fan. I'm just looking forward to the day when screen stuff gets sophisticated enough that I can kind of sink my teeth into it more as like a real story. I don't mean that I need super deep Power Rangers. Like I've always said, I think you can take the mythos and the lore and the aesthetic of that first show almost exactly as it is and make something kind of compelling. And the comics have more or less managed that, although DJ, for my money, and you've only read Go-Go, so you've only read the best of that stuff, but I still think that where we're at right now in the comics, they don't have still a real consistent sense of like how the stuff works. Just like the technology and stuff remains kind of vague to me, but and some of the background mythology, we still don't have a definitive origin of Zordon. I don't know why we haven't done that yet. In 4 years, we've not done that. I don't understand that. It's all I want. It's the thing I wrote. It's the thing I pitched. It's all I want is an origin is a good Zordon origin. And you know what'll happen? We'll finally get it, and it'll be like Krypton. It'll be all I ever asked for, and it will break my brain, and I won't understand what I'm looking at.
Mr. Bono, literally right before you said that, said, how about a Zordon prequel, DJ and Cap, like Krypton?
I would love that, but not like Krypton. Like what Krypton ought to have been.
Sussy said he hopes we get an animated Power Rangers that's like Young Justice and Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, absolutely. I want something like those first couple of volumes of Go-Go, which were like on the level, I've always said this, storytelling-wise and character dimension-wise of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, really getting to the core of, getting to the crux of what the high school experience is like and how difficult it is to find yourself during that period and what it would be like to grow up too fast and all of that. And also just does a really good job of giving each Ranger more than just like one personality trait and personal interest. DJ, yeah. you remember in the first couple issues of Go-Go where we meet each Ranger and we just get like a laundry list of like their interests and things, almost like we're looking at a yearbook. It's really great.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know how you want to proceed with this. We did get a $10 super chat about the Gotham PD show, so we might save that and talk about that when...
Let's go ahead and do this super chat from Lewis Cox about Power Rangers first, and then we can move on to the Gotham thing. 10 pound super chat from Lewis Cox. Thanks, buddy. If Dino Fury is the last Ranger series, then all right, I would love a way better version of Legendary Battle to finish it off, also with all of them from every season this time. Yeah, what they're going to have to do is actually, like, I don't know, pay actors like a little bit of money, like not just send them an email and go, you're invited to this party that we will film and make money off of, but not give you any of it. They got to quit doing that.
Yeah, I mean, they finally got Austin St. John to come back. He
was only doing
from the old days,
and he was only doing a favor for a producer that he's friends with. Yeah, from back in the day. That's it. Like, they've burned some bridges with some people. I think even if they did finally offer more money to some of the returning Rangers or actors, some of them would still turn them down just because they've been burned so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he means by that. Bring back from every season. Does he mean the actors or just the characters from every season? Because obviously, there's some actors that are like have passed away. Some actors that are in prison. There's like a lot.
Yeah, you couldn't get every single Ranger from every single season. That's impossible. And some of them just would decline, and they wouldn't want to do it. You also have some people that, I'm sorry to say, are further on in their careers that Power Rangers would be difficult to get them to come back to, right? I hate to say it's beneath them, and I think for a lot of those folks, it would be like, this is where I came from, so I owe it something, and they would come back to it. Like Bryan Cranston kind of did in agreeing to be in the 2017 2017 movie. He did that because some of his first work was doing voiceovers for Monsters and Power Rangers, and he said, I'm not beneath this. It got me work. It got me in Hollywood. I thought that was just the classiest thing. The second classiest thing he did was putting on a Power Rangers costume to be on a talk show. That was the second classiest thing that he did. I love Bryan Cranston. But anyway, but some of them I think are just too busy with, like major TV shows and things.
Yeah.
Of course, the girl from iZombie was a Power Ranger. And I don't know what she's doing now, but like for the last 5 or 6 years, she's had her own TV show. Like there's people that would be hard to get back.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly what he's saying. Maybe he just means at least have every season represented in some form, which is always weird because when we use the Sentai footage, there is seasons
Stuff
that we didn't
get.
do that we have to like cut around and make sure we don't show those seasons because it's awkward. But also, I don't know, because they'd have to use Sentai footage to do something like that because we would never shoot that much footage to do like.
Unless Hasbro is planning on throwing a lot of money at live-action Power Rangers, because we haven't talked about that possibility, but that's because I don't think that's a possibility. The idea that Hasbro would be like, oh yeah, let's keep it on TV, but shoot all of it, I don't see it. I don't see them throwing that kind of money at the TV show. I think it would be a lot more likely that they would do like a limited series on Netflix or something. Because we've been talking about animation. I guess it is possible that they could do like a movie for Netflix or something, or a limited series. For some streaming service on top of a live-action movie. It's also possible that they'll go the Star Trek way initially before we got to Discovery. And just say, and of course that's also Paramount, and just say it's just going to be movies now, and you've got comics and things. Somebody said, wouldn't it be crazy if there was a Power Rangers Star Trek crossover? Because Paramount also has Star Trek. I would love to see that in comics, certainly, and not live action, although. Not necessarily. I mean, right now, and we'll talk about this later, but the place that Star Trek's in right now. They've already blown it for me. Like they can't ruin it any further. If they started mixing Power Rangers and Star Trek, that can't ruin Star Trek for me now. That might actually be more enjoyable than what I've been watching because it at least couldn't possibly take itself too seriously.
Seriously, and that would be probably the easiest crossover to do. Like, I mean, the Space Rangers could literally just bump into their ship.
Yeah, sure.
That would be it. I mean,
well,
they're not in the future, I guess,
you'd have to do a time travel thing, but there's lots of time travel in both Star Trek and Power Rangers. And what's great is, if you mix it with Power Rangers, the time travel doesn't have to make any kind of sense. It's fine.
We've got Space Rangers and Time Travel Rangers, so they can just use both.
That's a really good point. Well, yeah, that's the thing is, Power Rangers has been ripping off of Star Trek for years.
Yeah, it'd be so easy to mix those two together.
Yeah, that needs to happen in comics. And I bet it will at some point because we just did it with Ninja Turtles. And so Boom has a good relationship with IDW, it seems. They've been crossing stuff over, so. And considering Paramount now has connections to both franchises, that should be even easier. Well, no, just as easy as Ninja Turtles, because Ninja Turtles also the movie site is made by Paramount, which means Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers have every possibility to cross over in live action on film now. That also is possible, if they do a shared universe.
Yeah, that's the thing. Why didn't they take the Ninja Turtle route? Ninja Turtles had movies, had live action movies, had the toys, had the comics, had the animated show, all running at the same time, simultaneously. Yeah. I don't know.
As popular as it was,
true, I don't understand what their strategy is. Why you don't need synergy? You don't need brand consistency with Power Rangers.
No, I think if anything, you do what you do with Batman, and you make a bunch of different kinds of it.
Yeah.
And also you have all these different versions of Power Rangers that different fans like. Like, the biggest complaint you get in the Power Rangers community whenever something Mighty Morphin is announced is, God, does it have to be Mighty Morphin again? Like, there's other Power Ranger series that people grew up with that they care more about. I don't have that as much because I'm an old person and I started with the original Power Rangers, and for me that's my Power Rangers. I like some of the newer stuff, but I get that complaint. And there's no reason that they can't be putting out, other things of other Power Rangers properties. Anyway, we should move on to the next topic. This went longer than I meant it to, but I had 3 articles to deal with, and there were some super chats. So anything else you're seeing? about this before we do move on?
People are talking about if it's still being shot in New Zealand. And Beast Morphers
yes.
just was shot, so yeah, it's still there.
I mean, right now anyway. Again, we don't know what's going to happen after they stop with Toei. I'm going to assume that means they're not making that show anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think stopping the Sentai would affect where they film it at all, because that's not related.
Sorry, there's one more important question that we did not discuss related to this that I'm sure somebody later on is going to bring up, which is ending the partnership with Toei. There's a question of what that means for rights for stuff, because they have the rights to all of the Sentai stuff right now because they have the partnership with Toei. Surely they're not going to end that partnership without keeping the rights to everything we've at least blended ourselves, right? Like, there's no way that they leave with that and go, well, there's all this iconography we can't use anymore because it started in the Sentais. Right? Wouldn't it be insane if they did that?
Yeah. If they completely change what the show is?
Well, but also if they didn't have the rights to certain things, so they had to stop using them in comics and stuff. Like, surely they're not going to do that.
Yeesh.
And like the phone game and all that? Could you imagine if just suddenly characters disappear from the phone game because they can't use them anymore because they were in Sentais? Surely not.
I mean, that would be all of them are in Sentais except for the comic stuff. And even those are based on those characters. So TH1, he has a super chat that's related, so I'll shout it out. Sorry I'm late with Zords and Transformers looking similar in technology. Would it be a good idea to make them related somehow in a crossover? You rock.
Interesting. The only issue I have with that is if you keep everything sort of canonical as it is right now. If you rebooted Power Rangers DJ, you could totally do that. If you made it more of a sci-fi thing, like I've always wanted to see it as, less of a fantasy thing, more of a sci-fi thing, you could absolutely do that. Would be a little bit difficult to pull off just with the lore as it is right now, because there's too much of a mystical component.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Transformers are pretty mystical. Like they have souls, so they're like living beings, even though they're technology.
Well, yes, that's true. But like but I mean, I guess somebody built the Zords too. You could also make the argument that all of this continuity, that all of this mythology is so loose that you could get away with just about anything. Maybe you could do that. No, maybe you could. Yeah,
I mean, and Zord, a lot of the Zords, especially the ones based on animals. Even the ones in Lost Galaxy aren't even mechanical. They're big animals, and then they like turn mechanical whenever they're about to be used.
Yeah, and we always treat them like living beings, or at least past Mighty Morphin. Like we or at least often we often treat them like living beings. Yeah.
Yeah, unless they're like Cars and Turbo or SPD or something. But yeah,
when you remember Dino Thunder is like we had a connection with them and talked to them and.
Yeah, I think that could work. I mean,
maybe it could. Would that mean that the Zords run on Allsparks? Do Zords have Allsparks in them?
Well, I would think that the Transformers would have like an ethical problem with how the Zords are being used by the Rangers.
The
and just being
soul thing.
Shut back under the volcano every time they don't need them anymore.
Yeah, there's an ethical question now.
Which Power Rangers never asks.
No,
real quick, this is interesting, and I don't know the answer to this for you. Oh, goodness. The chat is flying by tonight. I can't even find what I was just reading. We should have did just Power Rangers tonight. Hey,
apparently so. We've got a big group tonight. We also, if we absolutely have to, could stave off a couple things for next show, I guess. But I'd hate to do that after that thumbnail you made.
I'll just, we'll just reuse it. Tim
we'll just take Power Rangers off of it, and then just use the two.
Tim Johnson says, "Hey, Captain DJ, just curious, but which seasons of Power Rangers do each of you own on DVD?"
I have the ones that I just found really cheap at where was I? I went to a Big Lots a few years ago, and back when Big Lots had things that were cool. Every time I go to that store now, I'm like, there's nothing interesting here. But they used to have a lot of physical media that was just like liquidation and stuff. And I bought most of the most of the Zordon era. DJ, are you still with us?
I'm still here. I just turned my camera off for a second, so I could grab something off the shelf. Sorry, I'm good. Keep going. You got most of the Mighty Morphin era?
I'm just waiting on you, man. Yeah, yeah. That's all I have to say. I just like I think through like Lost Galaxy, but
yeah, same. I got the so I got the seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Which was this set, and then I got the 4 through 7, which is up to Lost Galaxy. So that's all I have. I just have the like the Zordon era continuity stuff. They're so expensive. These are like $150 a piece. So I want the one that has like SBD and Ninja Storm in it, which is the next one after this, and Time Force and all that. But they're really expensive.
Yeah. That is those are really cool looking sets. I've got the thinner ones, like each separate. I don't have those big boxes. I want those. Those are cool, and those are the ones that actually have a special features disc, and I don't think any of mine do.
Yeah. They each have like it's super thin. Like, dude, you're not missing too much. I mean, it's just this little tiny thin thing, and then it also comes with like a booklet.
Yeah, but as a collector, what you're missing, DJ, is that you have that, and I don't have that.
Yes, and I can rub it in your face.
Which you do every chance you get. I just knew you were gonna go pick those up off your shelf.
I had to, man. I had to. No one ever cares about this. So someone actually asked.
Somebody actually asked the question.
Look at this. This is weird. It's a green case, but it's got the White Ranger on it.
Oh, that is weird.
But yeah, that's what I got. I don't know if I'll ever get the rest. That would be interesting. Maybe we'll buy them for each other. We usually get each other Power Ranger gifts for Christmas.
That has been a tradition the last couple of years, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, should we move on?
Real quick, Edward Better put in a super chat saying, not easy being a Power Rangers Wild Force fan.
Yeah, I have never seen that show, so I can't feel your pain, but they don't make a lot of Wild Force stuff.
Oh, I think he's talking about how the Red Ranger in that show got arrested for something.
I couldn't remember which show it was that happened, yeah.
I can't remember, because I know the Red Ranger in Ninja Storm also was in some legal trouble for
something that's important to keep in mind, because anytime somebody dies or there's legal issues with somebody that was in Power Rangers, the whole internet loses its collective mind, because Power Rangers is, thought of as such a wholesome show, of course. Statistically, the odds of that happening, of either of those things happening, somebody dies tragically or gets arrested or murders someone and gets put away for a long time, are much, much higher for Power Rangers than for anything else practically that has ever existed. Because again, there are like 28 seasons of that show.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a huge cast in each show. It's like an ensemble show, so there's going to be a lot of people. I think he a lot of people. I think he killed somebody with a sword.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I didn't mean to laugh about that. It's so absurd. I can't even believe it happened.
Yeah, it's insane. That's going to be weird when we get to that in Morphin Mania, because people are only going to be talking about that.
Oh, Sussy said the Red Ranger from Ninja Storm died. I didn't know that.
He did. He did.
Yes, Stussy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't have anything to say about that.
Time Force, Sussy mentioned that Time Force is getting its own comic. Yeah, they're doing oversized one-shots for different shows. Slowly, they're putting some out. So we did the Psychopath from Space, which my kids have read several times and both love. I have not read it yet. I need to do that. And then they are doing a Time Force one that's supposed to come out later this year, which is exciting.
Lewis Cox gives us a $5 super chat. To me, Thanks, Power man. Rangers has always been science fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But
if not by design, by necessity, with the stuff they just choose to... It's because they're pulling from science fiction shows and fantasy shows, and then they combine it together, and it kind of...
But consistently, it's been that way since the very beginning. I mean, if I only watched the pilot, that's how I would have to describe it. Because you have a command center that looks like a Star Trek bridge, and they have mechanical Zords, and so like they're pressing buttons that then make mechanical things do things. So by that very nature, it's science fiction. They have their mentor is trapped in a time warp and kept solid so he can talk to us in this big tube thing. Their whole command center might be running on some kind of magical properties, but there's some kind of science to it. But then there's an evil witch that casts spells. that makes her monsters grow. So I mean, yeah, there always been 50% science, 50% fantasy. And if I straight on rebooted, I rebooted it. I always kind of wanted to make it just pure science fiction. But DJ, the more I thought about my own pitch, the more I still kind of want to keep Rita a witch that taps into the occult and dark magic. I think even when I do mine, I'm probably going to actually keep a magic component to it.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, it would get too generic, I feel, if you made it all science fiction.
Not necessarily. It wouldn't have to, but it would maybe lose too much of what it is. And what I would want to do with a reboot is keep more or less everything there that everyone remembers, but just give it a little bit of depth. AMC Comics says all of Star Wars. That's exactly right. It's science fantasy in exactly the same way Star Wars is. Because it's also stealing from me. It steals from Star Wars as much as it does from Star Trek. But Wizard of Oz, oddly, more than either of those things in the first season. Anyway. Okay, so we talked about this way longer than I intended to, and apparently we're going to just a little bit more. Edward Bedore, $5 super chat. It's dumb to have characters not believe Power Rangers are real in a universe where they appeared in public on a late show. I don't know if I'm right about this. I think generally the seasons where that happens, we have written out of continuity and said they happen in a different dimension. But I don't know if that's always the case. There may be some shows where they act like what are Power Rangers, where that doesn't happen. But I mean, you get into like Dino Thunder and everybody knows what Power Rangers are.
Yeah, it's really inconsistent about that because like you said in Dino Thunder, and I think in Ninja Storm too, they're like super pumped when they find out they're gonna be Power Rangers. Like they're like the Marvel superheroes of that universe. Like everyone knows about them.
And in Dino Thunder, like it's because of Ninja Storm, because one of the Rangers has a relative that goes to the academy, and they bring that up like very quickly.
But that's just because that actor had a cameo in that at the very end of that season, and they just like wrote it as a little joke.
No, but it's mentioned in like. I think it's mentioned in that clip show they did.
Yeah, but I'm saying the reason they wrote that in is because the actor that plays Connor, he was at the end of Ninja Storm as like a new recruit. What it is? Oh. And they're like, and he was just like, it was like a wink, like, that was my twin brother. I didn't realize that because I haven't seen much of that show at all. I just know there's a hamster in it. He's a guinea pig. But okay. He is Grandmaster. He's awesome. He's the best. He's a CG guinea pig and does not look good at all. I can't wait to get to it to show you.
Daniel Davis says the TMNT crossover was so bad. Yes, until you watched the Ninja Turtle show, until you watched Next Mutation, and then go back and watch that space crossover, and it's brilliant.
That's a weird super chat that we'll get to later.
Everything is relative in Power Rangers. All I saw was the follow-up to that super chat that somebody else said, that said it was like an After Dark question, but I didn't actually see the super chat. Okay, we have got to mosey right along here. There's a lot of questions, and we've got a big crowd tonight. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. We will get to as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, it's crazy here. All right, I'm going to go back up like 17, 18, 20 super chats ago.
But we've got DJ at the helm, so he can handle it. I think DJ can traverse this minefield.
I will steer this Captain Logan back to shore as often as I can.
Wait, that's lame. I have to be captain of the Captain Logan?
Hey, you're like one of those guys that names their boat after themselves.
Hey, Captain Logan, what are you the captain of? The Captain Logan. Sorry, what?
This is John Ty. Which B, C, or D, I like that he differentiates, list heroes from the big two do you want an ongoing series of comics for?
Okay, so I guess we're going to talk about some other things that aren't in the title and then get back to the things from the title. Because I guess we got to knock some of these super chats out. Okay, so A, B, C, and D list of what now?
Of the big two.
Of the big two that don't...
Do you want an ongoing comic?
An ongoing comic.
Currently doesn't have one.
Oh, okay. Oh, man, that's hard to say because... everything gets its own now, and like
this is a you question because I don't even
last for any amount of time. Yeah, and I'm not keeping up that hard with current. Like I'm buying just a few select things, like stuff that I collect. One of the biggest problems with the industry right now is giving everybody their own book and having too many titles. Like everybody seems to think that the industry would be doing better if we would strip down from down to 60 books, but a lot less than that. Like, everybody should have 30, 40 books. But anyway, Yeah, right off. I don't know.
I can read some of the. I'll read some of the chat while you think about it.
Sure.
Dusty says Big Barda. Stephen Murphy says Zatanna. AMC Comics says a Beast Boy and Terra series. I know that was a big thing in the
Moon Knight
show.
and Beast Boy. Yeah, but Moon Knight has an ongoing quite a bit. That's the thing, is that like everything that you're mentioning is either something that has had its own in the past and didn't sell real well, or like Zatanna has had her own ongoing before. Like if you're just talking about who ought to have one right now, I'm just not reading a lot at the moment. I don't know. Like every one of my favorite characters has had an ongoing at some point. They haven't always been great.
He doesn't necessarily say like what has never had one before. Just like what would you want to read right now, I guess is how we could answer it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Natalia says Aunt May.
Oh, weird. Yeah.
Would it be like 107-year-old Aunt May from the Stan Lee days?
For me, I guess it would be Peter David coming back to Spider-Man 2099, but putting him in like the good 2099 suit and staying in the future. So just go back to what that book was in the first place. That'd be good. The big thing I want is the Batman 89 aesthetic. That almost happened. I still don't know why it didn't happen, and I still want that. I know a lot of people are like, I don't know how you'd tell stories in that, and that's the point. I want to see someone attempt it. I really want Michael Keaton Batman represented in comics somehow, and do an ongoing for that. We got it with 66, and it was one of my favorite things. It would just be absolutely wonderful to get that. I realized that there's a lot of Batman, but that version of that character, I guess, is my main answer at the moment. It would in comics. Let me think for a second. Well, you said big two, but like I'm thinking about Ninja Turtles, and like it would be because one of my favorite things maybe my favorite thing in IDW Ninja Turtles is Metalhead and how that whole thing was handled, and it could be interesting, even though he's kind of a villain now, to see him get at least a miniseries and do something off on his own. Dr. Fate.
Yeah, people are saying Ma and Pa Kent, Harry Osborn, Punisher 2099.
What would you do with a Ma and Pa Kent series?
Commissioner, I don't know. I think Vitaly's just trolling us because he's the one who also said Aunt May.
Maybe
and Alfred.
So.
Blue Dragon 5 would like a Commissioner Gordon / GCPD ongoing. Blue Dragon 5 also says Our Man.
Yeah, I don't know enough about a lot about Our Man. Also, a lot of things that I always thought would be really cool were attempted and then nobody cared. Like bringing back Resurrection Man made me happy, and then nobody bought that. Shocker! I was so surprised.
All right.
Yeah, it is weird we're not doing anything with question right now, Gypsy Warrior.
Yeah, he always comes up every time we get asked these kind of questions.
Yeah, always.
Bella Ack, thoughts on Disney Plus censoring... Sorry, this question. This is not what we usually talk about, especially on this show. Thoughts on Disney Plus censoring Daryl Hannah's butt in Splash, but not Hugh Jackman's in Days of Future Past. I call sexism.
I don't have a dog in that fight. I didn't even know about that.
Oh, you didn't know about that?
No, I haven't.
It's hilarious. They did it in the most horrible, rushed way. Like they just like cloned her hair from her head and just like made it longer. It looks horrible. I've only seen it because it's on YouTube clips.
This is just my first initial reaction. Understand that the way I process information is by talking. So I might say a thing that I later will disagree with. So feel free to take me into task if you really hate what I'm about to say, if you just really have to. But I may also be in your corner later. I just need some time to process this information because I didn't know that was going on. My first initial reaction is if you feel like you have to censor it, then don't bother having it on your service in the first place. And if you absolutely have to censor it, then be consistent. Yeah, I don't think that there should be that we should look at that any differently between male and female nudity. If you feel like you absolutely have to censor one, then censor the other one. The way we've always handled this in the past is it doesn't seem to count as full-on nudity if all you see is somebody's backside, and that is true of, I think, men and women, although we don't do it as much with women. But you see a lot of like male backsides in movies in the 90s and the 2000s. Where we go, well, we don't have full on nudity, but like you can get away with that. You can see like the back of a person. If that has to be censored now, First of all, I don't understand that. I think that's weird. But like, if that has to be censored now, I guess we should do it across the board. We just absolutely have to do it.
Yeah, because then you have to get into like intent and like intent of the people watching it and like mood of the scene, and it's not really measurable at that point. Like, yeah, I wouldn't think anyone would be like turned on by Hugh Jackman losing his mind in that scene and like just going crazy.
But I don't think it's a matter of being turned. It's probably just, well, kids are watching this network, but like at some point you're gonna have to just, you know, hope that the ratings are enough and that parents are paying attention to what their kids are watching. Like, Disney owns too much to be that concerned with making sure that every single thing on their platform is family friendly.
Well, yeah. Well, I was surprised that they actually had it on the big, huge banner on their site. Did you see that when they added Days of Future Past?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I have not been on Disney Plus in a little while, a few weeks. Somebody suggested it might, good old gamer, that it might be because one is PG and the other is PG-13.
That's true.
Then change the rating, hike up the rating if you absolutely have to. But that might be difficult because you have to send it back to the ratings board. You can't just write PG-13 on a thing. You would have to send it back to the ratings board. So I don't know.
It's weird. But no, that's interesting. I wouldn't even expect them to like advertise that, but apparently they're not too concerned about having stuff on there that's because that's the least adult thing about that movie, I think, is just a butt. Like, that's a pretty heavy, dark movie. Like, this kid's trying to shoot the president. Like,
do they censor the F-bomb?
Probably not. I don't think they censor anything.
Weird. Okay.
Except for one butt in a mermaid movie for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I can't explain that.
Like, kids are rushing out to see the rom-com Splash from the 80s or whatever.
Yeah, who are we censoring that for? Sure.
That's so weird. It's more weird that they did that than that they didn't do it for...
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
All right, Lewis Cox. Hey, Geeklution. I feel like DC Universe will be rebranded with maybe HBO Max, possibly. I don't know. Yes, we've talked about that a lot.
I'm sorry, I was reading comments. Would you read that one more time, please? I apologize.
He feels like DC Universe will be rebranded with HBO Max.
Yeah, I have said this before, but I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened already and that there hasn't at least been some kind of announcement about it. Everybody that has DC Universe is kind of on pins and needles going, am I going to get to keep this service in some form? Like, those of us that like it would really like it to not completely go away. If it folds into HBO Max, but we get to keep everything that's on it, that would be great because then we wouldn't have to double dip anymore. But there's no way HBO Max is going to suddenly have a DC comic section, right? Like, that's not going to happen. They're not going to have... And if it did, I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly the interface wasn't as good, because I've had some issues with the interface on HBO Max here and there. DJ, it still drives me crazy that if you watch a TV show on HBO Max, it doesn't give you an episode list when you click on an episode. So every time you watch one, like, it may go to the next one, but if you don't, like, if you go back to it, you have to like search it out again. It's really weird. I don't understand that.
Oh, what? I don't know what you mean. You have to search. You have to like find what episode you were on.
Yeah, you have to like go back to. There's not inside of the. I don't know how to describe this. Inside of the page that you click on, if you bring up a show, it's not like Netflix where it gives you an episode list that you can bring up like separate from it. If you watch something, you have to then go back and search it out again if you want to watch a different episode besides just the very next one. You can't skip around in it. I don't understand that.
That's just on device, because I haven't had that problem on my TV at all.
Oh, weird. Okay. Well, I haven't got to watch it on my TV because it doesn't support Fire Stick.
Well, we use a Fire Stick.
You've told me how you do.
My wife figured out how to do it.
Yeah. Or you haven't told me how you did it, but you told me that you did it and that there was like a site you were able to go to, and I just haven't.
Yeah, she did it. She hooked it up to a button on my remote. I just pushed the HBO button and boom.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. But anyway, just to go back to the question for really briefly, yeah, I'm really surprised that we haven't gotten any information about that at all. And it's hard to predict what exactly will happen because I have too much of a stake in this myself. What I really want is for at least the comic side to stick around because I rely on it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, like, I don't mind all of the original programming and even the movies and the older movies and TV shows moving over to HBO Max because I am subscribing to HBO Max. But if we completely lose the comic side, that's going to be difficult for me and what I do because I have been relying on it. So I want to say I hope that sticks around, but I don't know how many people have been subscribing for that, and I don't know how lucrative that is for them. So if they're not making much money with that, I could see them, even though they did spend some money getting all that started, dropping that database entirely. And I hope that doesn't happen, but I don't trust it.
That seems crazy to me because Marvel has had it for years.
For years.
I don't.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that DC doesn't have something like that for just comics. I don't know. What do I know?
And then if they take the other side of it out, the question is how many people leave and how many new people would they get just announcing or making a big deal out of we have this comic side? Because I think there's a lot of people that don't know about the comic side and think that DC Universe is just like a few shows and some originals and it's not worth it. Because I talk to people all the time that are like, I don't know why you're subscribed to that. I'm like, well, do you know about the giant library of comics? Oh yeah, I didn't know they were doing that. Like, they didn't get the word out real well on that. Clearly, Warner's has a great track record of letting people know what their streaming services do. That was sarcasm. It's been a problem.
Mutali says, why is it called HBO Max? Should just be called Warner's Max. I think that would have done even worse. But
well, I wouldn't have put the word Max on it, but yeah, that whole thing is very complicated, and we have talked about that before, so we're going to have to move on, I think.
Yeah, we've done so many shows about this. Edward Bedward, I opened a door to another dimension. These
interesting.
These metachlorians are strong stuff. Stronger than dust or death sticks. Did I just read a quote? Because I didn't know if I was reading a quote.
I don't know what that is. It was entertaining for the few seconds that we were reading it. I don't know what's going on there.
Stronger than dust or death sticks. Well, I don't know. Let us know what
I just another dimension. Before. I don't see what that would have been a quote from because there's not in multiple dimensions in Star Wars yet. There's a lot of rumors that they're going to go that way in order to decanonicize the newer movies. DJ, that's a major.
Unless he was doing that thing where he's like modifying a quote to be Star Wars to be funnier. You know?
Maybe so. Yeah. Well, I hope someone else understood that and was amused by it because it went right over my head.
Both of us. And my head's higher than his, and it still went over. That's mostly because my laptop is shooting up at me.
No, I was still slightly amused, but I don't totally get what was happening. So I could say I was bemused, but that's not fair. I don't think I was quite bemused either. I don't know.
Oh, man. Next from a new person that I'm not familiar with, Dark Moonlight Entertainment.
Hi there.
I feel like I should read it like the opening of the Batman cartoon. Is it fair to say that BVS had a bigger impact on fandom than Dark Knight Rises, despite being a much worse movie? I never hear anyone it anymore. I'm assuming he's talking about Dark Knight Rises. So true. I would say that's true.
No, I don't agree with that.
On fandom, maybe usually on cinema, Dark Knight Rises would have more, but just on fandom.
No, because there is a difference. But okay, read the question again. Let me make sure that I heard.
Bigger impact. He doesn't say anything about quality.
The problem is impact because so you can't gauge everything by whether or not a movie is on everybody's lips still. So BVS people are still complaining about for a couple of reasons. For a lot of us, it was that bad and weirdly bad and like broke our brains because we didn't understand how it even got made, right? It was that fascinating bad, DJ. But the bigger issue is that BVS continues to be influential because it informed a universe that continues to go. So it's still in the it's still in the culture in a way that Rises isn't. Like Rises was the end of something. BVS was very much the beginning of something. But secondly, as I said, influence is different from how much people are still talking about it. I give you Bane. Like, you can't say Rises has all that much less of an impact when everyone is still doing Bane voices this many years later. Because that is absolutely happening. So maybe people talk specifically about BVS more, but Bane still absolutely resonates.
Yeah, someone else brought up Bane. I think Anime 2020 said Tom Hardy's Bane made a bigger impact. or a big impact.
And different kinds of impacts, right?
Yeah, and it's also anecdotal. Like
now, Rises did have a befuddled impact to some degree too. It was a polarizing movie, and those of us that weren't in love with it were surprised by the ways in which it was confusing and didn't make a lot of sense. Of course, and I think they're interesting things to compare because when I was baffled by Rises and then BVS happened, and suddenly Rises didn't seem as strange anymore. So there's that. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would tend to agree with him. You're saying that it's not a fair question because it's a different kind of scenario. But given the question that he said, I think even though it's not fair because, like you said, it's part of a bigger universe, it's still, I think we are hearing about it still. But that's not necessarily fair. Lewis Cox, also, isn't CBS All Access being rebranded with more Paramount things, right? I don't know. I love how everyone...
Nobody knows anything. We're just all
saying, I don't know.
I've heard a thing. It might be true. Let's find out. We gotta change this to like the "it might be true" show. I
don't. The IDK show. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's actually not a terrible name for a show because then you could do rumors all the time and nobody would ever complain. You know, it's sort of like Cap Can't Play. It's like if you're gonna do a video game show where you suck at video games, just own it and then you're fine. But anyway,
was it Collider that had a show called The Rumor Mill? Is that still going? Can we take that title? That's basically what this show is.
I like it might be true better.
It might be true.
Like who knows the show?
Who knows the show?
So
man, gold.
I think it is
have a business meeting.
It is more than rumor that is going to be rebranded. It is hard to say in what way exactly that will happen, but it does seem to be, from everything I've read, true that they're going to get away from CBS All Access and that they're going to do a Paramount thing that is supposed to compete with Disney and with HBO Max. I don't think that's rumor. I think that is happening.
Wow. What about the Peacock? Peacock's about to swoop in and take down everybody.
Yeah. It's going to take 5 people from Disney and no one from HBO Max. You know why? Because the only people that are going to buy the Peacock aren't paying for HBO Max because they got it free because they were already paying for HBO something else.
Yeah, I got HBO Max cheaper because I switched over. Because HBO was already $15. I'm getting it for $12. Okay, well, goodness gracious. What do we got? Edward Bedard coming back again.
Great balls of fire.
It's dumb to have characters not believe Power Rangers are real. Did we already talk about that one?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we sure did.
Yes, okay. I didn't realize you grabbed that one.
Should we go into the Pattinson Batman spinoff now? And then folks can continue to ask questions. And
yes, I have a super chat for that.
All right, sure, no problem.
There's a super chat for that.
There's a super chat for everything, apparently. It's like apps.
If I can find it. We got so many. Lewis Cox.
Yeah.
There he is again.
Good luck. We're having to jump around so much, DJ. Good luck getting all the super chats in. Good luck finding them all.
I have check boxes next to all of them in my list.
Of course you do.
Marking them
this
off
is why he makes the big bucks. Go ahead, DJ.
This Gotham PD show seems to be, or sound, hold on. I'm just going to read it straight as it is and we can decipher. This Gotham PD show, to me, sounds like a hardish reboot of what the first Gotham seasons. Yeah, sure, it went off the rails, absolutely. This might be good. I don't know.
I think that question went a little bit off the rails, but yeah.
Yeah, he thinks it sounds like a hardish reboot of what the first few seasons of Gotham before it went completely crazy.
Yeah, so obviously...
And he also ended it with I don't know, which I love.
So, yeah, because that's going to be the new show. It's the I don't know show.
Everybody, with you have to add IDK at the end. It'll only add a couple more cents, but you got to do it.
So, let's go ahead and jump into this. So HBO Max has apparently started to develop a Batman series without Batman, a series based on the Robert Pattinson Batman. It'll be set in that universe. It's going to be a spin-off show, and we don't know if Gordon's in it. We don't know what characters from that universe that we will see in that movie might wind up in this, or if Batman himself will even ever appear in it. All we know is that it is a police procedural. It sounds like a Gotham Central kind of thing, and you're right. Gotham sort of did that too, but as a prequel in establishing a young Bruce Wayne and in doing every villain under the sun before they meet Batman. I wouldn't call this a thing that looks like a reboot of that, but something that's treading some of the same ground because that was a show that people wanted to see. Like, I think Gotham was one of those things that was trying to have its cake and eat it too real hard. People had kicked around a Gotham Central thing for years. The fans always wanted something like that. It's easier to make that on screen than to have somebody in a costume all the time doing the kinds of fisticuffs and stunts that somebody in a superhero costume has to do. And police procedurals are made all the time. It's easier to make a thing like that. But people also wanted like a straight up Batman show. So they said, why don't we do the Smallville thing and kind of give people both, which might have worked better than the really weird, strange hodgepodge thing they made with an identity crisis that it never fully fixed itself, and it never totally understood what it was, and neither did I. And I'm still reeling from it, and I'm still not sure entirely what the reality I'm living in after that show existed, and I watched as much of it as I did. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people are comparing this premise to Gotham. So I wouldn't say reboot, but I would say what people were wanting that wanted a show like that before we got to Gotham. The important thing to note is that this is going to be made by one of the producers of The Sopranos. This is by Boardwalk Empire creator Terrence Winter, and a lot of people are freaking out about this and saying that there's no way this is going to be bad because of that guy's track record. And I've never seen Boardwalk Empire, and I've never actually seen The Sopranos, but of course people swear by that show, and it was a lot of people's favorite show of all time before Breaking Bad, a lot of people still favorite show, and even if you haven't seen those shows, just knowing what they are, yeah, that's the guy for this, right? Like, that's an amazing get that that's who they got for this. Sure. I'm ecstatic about that. Like, whatever that ends up being, and however great or not so great that movie ends up being, I will be really surprised if there's not something special here. This sounds amazing to me.
Yeah,
just with that guy with that track record.
Than Gotham, right? It can't be. It has to be better than Gotham. Just the fact that it's a streaming show is like...
And being an HBO thing, because that guy, first of all, has a relationship with them. And yes, HBO Max, but I'm going to assume that shows like this that will be probably R-ish or hard R will be made more or less the same way we've always done HBO shows. Like I said earlier, where somebody pitches a show, and if you greenlight it, you get out of their way, and you let them make what they want to make. Just because this is on a streaming service that is collectively all of Warner's stuff, do you agree with me, DJ? I'm going to assume that it's still going to be an HBO show.
No, absolutely, because HBO, all of HBO shows are on there. And, like, we talk about Netflix as starting, and they did. It's true, they did start the streaming exclusives, but HBO has been making their own content for years and years, well before Netflix was, and they've never stopped that. They keep doing it. The one thing they do, you said they let them do whatever they want. I think the one mandate from HBO is that it has to be dark and brooding and super depressing.
Yeah.
Because even his Dark Materials, which is based on like a kid's book series that I finished a couple months ago, was like really dark. And I know it's, I didn't read the books, but
at least they no longer insist on really sexually explicit scenes like they seem to have when they made Rome.
There's none of that.
So that's good.
Well, they're still known for that, though. I mean, a lot of their stuff still has that.
Yeah, and of course Game of Thrones did. But this is the right kind of material for an HBO show. I mean, Watchmen was great material for HBO, and I know that's polarizing, and you and I love that show, but a lot of people don't.
And I do think that one obligatory sex scene in Watchmen. There was only one scene, but I feel like it was a little bit out of place.
Kind of unnecessary and out of place.
HBO thing.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, but forgetting just the sex thing, I'm just saying that, like, for comic material, yeah, this is the right kind of material for HBO.
Absolutely. If you're picking from comic stuff, this is, I mean, Gotham is the darkest, grossest place in all of comic land.
And you can, and most importantly, you can tell really serious, morally ambiguous, hard to deal with police drama in that. I don't want to get into politics, of course, but I do want to say that given the climate right now and all of the talk from certain camps after we all know what I'm talking about. Some stuff that has of course happened recently regarding the police. A lot of talk of people wanting to see TV shows about the police pulled, and the way we make police, crime drama, making it different and reflect more of what's really going on now. Anybody else surprised they chose this moment to announce this?
That's crazy. That's actually
is it bold or is it stupid? What's weird is it can. I haven't really heard anybody complain about it, but I might just be looking at the wrong circles. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw this was, you're gonna announce a police procedural today of all day? Really?
That's the big thing is a lot of police procedural actors are worried they're gonna lose their jobs because they're gonna cancel all those.
Yeah, AMC Comics mentioned that Cops got canceled over this. We canceled Cops, and then like a week later, this gets announced. That's wild!
The new Cops, Gotham.
I'm not gonna comment, of course, on the political situation. I just couldn't believe the choice to announce that now.
Yeah, that's crazy. And of course, Watchmen was like before all this happened, but so relevant. Like, it was like weird how much that.
Isn't that interesting? And I wonder if it would have been more or less well received after that.
I think it would have been even more popular.
I also
it kind
can't
of came
tell.
And went, right? Like
it did. Well, I can't tell how many people watched it. Like with so many things, like I have recently seen a video or two of somebody saying like I watched a video. I won't name names, but from a guy who was talking about how much he hated the Watchmen show and all the reasons that he thought it was a lot more politically pandery than I did, and he was talking about how poorly it did and how nobody watched it, and I just don't know if that's the case. I don't know how many people watch that show.
Yeah,
we don't have
anything.
We don't have numbers. Yeah, I don't know. He may be right. I just don't know.
Yeah. I'm just gonna. So are you okay to move on from the Gotham topic?
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to ask more questions about that or weigh in on anything regarding that, feel free. Somebody earlier said I need to stop saying that I'm going to take questions for a full hour. The idea is always an hour, and then we try to allot an extra hour most nights if we need it. So that's why the description will say that. I may start saying at least though. You'll notice that I used to do a goal on nights where we didn't have After Dark where I would do a second hour if we hit a certain dollar amount in the first hour, and lately I just haven't felt the need to do that. We've been having a hard time getting done with an hour in the first place.
And it's a Tuesday. Even on the Tuesday shows we're going over. Like, you guys are awesome. We love you guys.
I mean, we have so many super chats and so much viewership tonight that it's making DJ pronounce it Tuesday.
Tuesday. I'm making fajitas. Tony Suarez, welcome, Tony. I've seen you around, but not too many super chats from you. What up, Cap and DJ? This is a bit off topic, but just curious, what style of karate do you practice, DJ? And did you ever do any form of competition? He practices Machida karate. Machida. I'll answer this real quick. I grew up, my parents they actually own their own studio, and they always have since I was born. That's how they met, and I think, well, no, they actually knew each other growing up, but they did it together. They ran their own studio together. It was mostly Taekwondo. American Taekwondo is where I got started for the first like 3 or 4 years of my life. And then when we moved down here to Georgia, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, they started working for East West Karate, which is a big chain where we moved. And that was more of an American Kempo karate style. So the last few years of my training, before I got my black belt, the last couple years before I got my black belt, that's what I was working mostly. Dabbled in a little bit of like Jeet Kune Do, grappling kind of stuff, because my dad he learns from a lot of different people and kind of incorporates different styles. But I got my 3rd degree in that style, which was kind of the mix of Taekwondo and karate. And then now I actually don't practice in a studio anymore. I just kind of train on my own, and I mostly just do what's called martial arts tricking, which is this sport that's pretty big. You've probably never heard of it, but it's pretty big. Look it up on YouTube, martial arts tricking. It incorporates kicks from Taekwondo, a lot of moves from Capoeira, a lot of gymnastics moves, and even some moves from like b-boying and stuff like that, even though most of it's from Capoeira. And it's just kind of like a self-expression, like acrobatic form of tricking with like kicks thrown in. And it's just what I do to stay in shape and have fun and make YouTube and Instagram videos. Follow me. Not really. I don't actually post that often. But yeah, that's what I do.
I don't know why we've never plugged this.
because I don't care. But yeah, what else do you say? Oh, have you ever done competition? Yes, I used to do a ton of competition when I was younger. When I did Taekwondo, I did a lot of competition, mostly forms and breaking and stuff like that. I was never big into fighting. Even I was never into like martial arts as a self-defense thing. It was more just like a sport for me. Growing up, it was all about the competition, and just kind of like I said, self-expression and fitness, more that aspect of it. But yeah, I used to do competition. When I moved down here, I was in the Battle of Atlanta for a little bit. My little brother actually went to the Junior Olympics when he was really young, which was, and I used to go like when I was in Pennsylvania, I did like the state championship there, and then like I think I qualified for nationals with my breaking division, but I didn't go. But yeah,
wow.
I used to do that kind of stuff. Crazy question. That was weird. That was a trip down memory lane. I've not thought about that in forever.
And I'm not sure why it's never come up before. Thanks a bunch for that. I've always been curious about some of that too, DJ, and I've just never thought to bring it up on air. You just told me about some of it, but some of that I didn't know. So did you ever, so you said you did competition, but you weren't into fighting. So does that mean that you did mostly demonstration and board stuff and not much in the way of sparring, or did you also do that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, like when I went to state, I did do sparring. I was never a fan of it. I still don't like hitting people. I'm not a very violent person. I'm a very chill person. So yeah, I did mostly forms and weapons and breaking. And then that is what I did for most of my career. Like starting from 12, when we moved down here to Georgia and did the East West Karate thing, we would go and perform on the demo team, like all around at like festivals and public events, fundraisers, like school, like fall festivals for schools and stuff, and we just go around doing demos and performing for people and getting advertising for our school. So that was the main thing that I used to do, and I got a lot of friends from that. That's where I met most of my real close friends in martial arts, because we would go and train and practice our stuff that we do every day. And I told Cap one time that we did like a Matrix style like fight scene, and we used that when we actually watched Matrix. I was like, oh, I know this song. We used this for a performance.
Yeah, because well, and you knew the scene a little bit too, because like you had to deal with it for that, but you never bothered to actually sit down and watch the movie that it was based on.
Yeah, well, and those guys that I trained with were always talking about that movie, like, but I never got around to doing it. I don't know. I was a weird kid. Yeah, I think it was because it was rated R, and I didn't watch a lot of rated R.
I'm just glad that you liked it. So, I just had an interesting notion. I think, DJ, you should consider. I mean, it would be difficult because I don't know if we could get away with using footage, but I think you should consider on Morphin Mania doing a little bit of critique and analysis of Ranger fights, of especially like the out of costume stuff.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, especially because that's the stuff that got me into in the first place. That's why I still do tricking today, is because that was kind of like the beginning of tricking, was like incorporating backflips for no reason into your fights, just for fun. And that's what I love about it. I just love the expression of it. I even got into like parkour and free running for a little bit, which is all the flips and no kicks. But they do that in the show. Like they'll do like a wall flip, which is not a martial arts thing, but they'll flip off a tree. Like Tommy does like a 2-step tree flip in one of the episodes I remember. But yeah, that was where it all started. And like Matt Emig, one of the big influential guys in the beginning of tricking, he was inspired by Ninja Turtles as a kid, and he's a nunchuck guy. And
cool.
Like all those people kind of got their start from there. And that's kind of how the sport has evolved over the years. And now you can't even, like all through my high school and college years, you can't even let anyone know you do martial arts without the first question being, can you do a backflip? Which is ridiculous where it's at this point, because like traditional martial arts would be so offended by that. Like that's not what it's about. But yeah, I like sport martial arts. That's what I did. So yeah, I'd love to.
It's weird to imagine this. Imagine what the world would look like if the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie didn't get off the ground.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, that movie is oddly influential. I get Ninja Turtles on the whole, but more of it with that kind of stuff is just that movie, right? It's guys in really heavy stunt suits with animatronics in their heads still being able to backflip like 19 times on a roof.
Yeah, and those guys are incredible. Like 30-pound suits and like still doing back handsprings. That's awesome. And the stunt guy. So the weird thing is the stunt guy who was in the first movie and ended up playing Keno in the second movie,
yes.
Ernie Reyes Jr.,
yeah,
his father, Ernie Reyes Sr., I have seen so many times because they used to put out videotapes back when videotapes were a thing, tutorial tapes like that my dad would always buy for the school, and it was like demo team training, like demo classes and stuff. So I would watch Ernie Reyes Sr. Teach how to teach the demo class, and then I would go teach, or my dad would go teach the students. So I'm very familiar with the Ernie Reyes's, which is a weird little tidbit that I've never spoke about before.
I've watched some interviews from him at conventions. He's a neat guy. Ernie Reyes. Yeah. I mean, he seems nice.
So cool. I mean, they must have loved him enough to put him in the movie. Just like a stunt guy getting to be in the next movie, that never happens.
And he had like so much enthusiasm. Like it's infectious in that movie.
He's a decent actor for that movie.
He's not bad at all. He should have gotten to be in Power Rangers. He really should have.
Oh, he could have been a great Power Ranger.
Blue Dragon 5 says that you can do a backflip and I can do a barrel roll.
Oh, you be the judge. Which is more impressive?
Do a barrel roll.
Okay, no one cares about this. We've talked about this way too long.
This has been my favorite segment of the show so far. Go ahead.
Someday we'll do a DJ. We've never done a DJ show. That was something that you always joked around putting me on the spot, and I don't know how I'd feel about it.
Well, I did one a few weeks ago where I had you and Brandon answer questions, so I did put your name in the title, but I haven't had one where it was just I'm facilitating and DJ's answering for a whole hour. We haven't done that show yet.
Oh, interesting. I'll go to this one next. I am skipping a bunch, but I will get to your questions. Carl Maxey, DJ, since you're a skilled martial artist, if you would be a DLC fighter in a video game, which game would it be? It'd have to be Tekken. Cap knows how much I love Tekken, and that one really like gets into the. I know Virtual Fighter does this too, but I haven't played Virtual Fighter that much, but Tekken really gets into the nitty-gritty of actual styles being used. Yes, they have like leopard head guys and panda bears, but like speaking of tricking, if you break down Eddie Gordo's stuff, like me and my friends used to learn tricks and kicks from Eddie Gordo's moves. They actually went really deep into capoeira, and the combos that you can do with him is amazing. I would love to be. I don't know what my style would be. It would be just kind of the DJ mix of style, but I would love to be in Tekken. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, they of course that tradition starts with the Virtua Fighter, so Tekken is looking at Virtua Fighter when it does that. Yeah. I think some of that is more in depth there. Some of it in the later games probably not. I mean, Virtua Fighter gets really deep by 4 and 5, but I mean in the early days a lot more so. With real martial arts styles than anything else was doing, and a lot of different martial arts styles. So if you play as Akira, it feels like you're playing as a totally different game almost than if you play as like Lau or Sarah or somebody. But I think you would make more sense in Virtua Fighter just because there's not any kind of like mystical or sci-fi anything in that game. It is just people in a martial arts tournament.
Yeah, I would like to. If you ever get that machine up and running, I'd love to when I come visit. Play that with you because that sounds really interesting.
I am a lot closer. I finally got the power adapter in the mail because I looked everywhere, could not find one. It was impossible. It's a proprietary piece of hardware and it's really hard to get your hands on. I had to spend more than I wanted to, but not quite as much as I thought I was going to have to. So that's exciting. So anyway, my arcade guy that has been trying to help me with this for 6 months is coming over on Thursday. So fingers crossed we might finally get it fixed and then I can show it to you guys. But anyway. Yeah.
Another one I would throw out is Soul Calibur. I know that's also a huge fantasy game, but they have a lot of cool stuff with weapons that me and my friends would used to kind of study and get ideas from. They do a lot of really like detailed weapon stuff in those games, even though they're like on fire, like the swords are on fire. But
I've also mentioned Dead or Alive because that's the spiritual successor to Virtua Fighter and made by the same company. It's AM2, and they, I mean, people complain about the overt like sexiness of that game, but it's also a really deep in actual fighting styles. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you are interested at all in like some crappy home videos that me and my friend made like years ago before I knew anything, you can just click on my name in the chat because that'll take you to my channel where I posted some old videos. I haven't done anything in a while, but yeah, let's throw that out there. John Ty, there is an anime that is like Power Rangers called Brave Command Dagwon.
Weird, never heard of that.
You can watch it all on YouTube, he says. Interesting.
Yeah.
Like Power Rangers.
That
Command Dagwon.
That would be worth looking at to get a sense of what a like animated Power Rangers might look like, or what kinds of things they might take their cues from.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm also going to make this prediction real fast. If they do animated Power Rangers, it will be in a pseudo anime style. because the comics go there a lot. And also, they'll want to keep one foot in Japan. Right? Like, even if
they're kind of like, what's that show that everybody talks about that I need to see, but I still haven't? The one that we made, but it's...
No.
The one we made it, but it's very anime. Oh, goodness. We're going to get raked over the coals. I mean, the Avatar, the last
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Everyone talks about that. It kind of be in that kind of style. I don't think they would go like the full, like Teen Titans form of anime where they like the big old heads and the maybe I don't know, but I think they would definitely go more the style of
No, I don't think so. I think they would base it more on the style of more serious animes, as far as the actual character models. Because again, that's what the comics are doing, especially early on. But it's going to be kind of manga inspired, I would bet, if that were to get made. Obviously, I'm predicting about something that we don't even know if is ever going to happen. But if that happened, they're going to look at animes for inspiration.
Yeah, and I'd be interested in that. Apparently, like I said, I haven't watched it, but I've heard a lot that there is a lot of tricking. I've seen videos that break down like the tricking elements that is included in Avatar. So they could definitely do that in martial art in Power Rangers too. And now I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to hand it over to Cap with this next super chat, and I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Bella Act, as married men.
Yeah.
Have you all ever been caught checking out another girl?
And Mike, and he's just not going to say anything. Oh. Short answer is no.
Either I don't know. It's not an interesting answer.
I don't think that's happened. Yeah. And if so, I don't know that my wife would really even have like a major reaction or anything. Like I don't know. We don't really have trust problems like that. And like I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big thing. It would just be like if it did happen, it would just be like she would just laugh at me or like point it out or something and make me feel uncomfortable, but it wouldn't cause like a fight or anything.
Like I have commented on other women's looks before to my wife. Like
yeah, well I do a lot. My wife
pretty.
Comments on other women's looks to me.
So. Exactly. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. We're pretty comfortable together. I don't like. I also don't have an interesting answer, but I don't think that would even be a big thing.
It's not like the movies, guys. I don't know if you have a good relationship.
At least with us, yeah,
it's not as dramatic as the movies make it out to be. It's not like
I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to stare at
break up with you immediately if you.
Yeah, but also I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to stare at some attractive chick from across the room for like 5 minutes, and then my wife's like, "Why aren't you paying attention to me?" Like.
Yeah, that was the question that someone thought was an After Dark question, but it didn't really go to an After Dark place. Sorry. T-Edge1.
And that's not just because we're not on After Dark. If we were on After Dark, it would have been exactly the same, and it would have been boring.
Oh, I mean, we've been doing so many shows. We're gonna have to get to a point where we just start making up stories anyway. So why not start now?
So true. and then one of the biggest comments is going to be just people like not believing us, like checking us on things. Like, did that really happen? Yeah, no, you got me. That did not happen. We'll have to start doing a show where we tell you 3 stories and only one of them is true, and you have to guess which one is true.
We'll start saying IDK after everything that we say.
We'll just become Jonathan Frakes. We're like, did you know which one was the truth?
3 truths and a lie.
That one was wrong. No, I have never owned a duck as a pet.
Oh, that's a shame. I actually have. Well, no, my brother has. My little brother. My son like grabbed it and tried to rip it.
Ooh, that'd be a fun game though, DJ. We could do that. You and I could each together before a show write a bunch of facts about ourselves and then switch some of them, and then people have to guess which fact is true about you or me. That's a fun game. We should play that one night.
Let's write it down. We should do that, and we also still have to do the Would You Rather show because occasionally we get these crazy Would You Rather questions. We need to devote a whole show.
We do, and I seriously considered pitching that for tonight until we had news to talk about. So if nothing else happens this week, maybe Thursday.
Yeah, we've got so many shows in the can that we got to get done. That's 3 that we've already brought up tonight.
If you guys think we're out of ideas, you're right, but only by like 4 or 5. We have like 5 great ideas. I'm just kidding. All right, go ahead.
We'll always have the business meetings where we figure out those ideas right here.
Right here. To listen to. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You heard it here first, folks.
Nothing ever comes as a surprise to our viewers. We give it all away. Edward Bedor back again with another super chat. I want a reboot of the live-action Titans that does get it right and doesn't forcibly try making it into something that Teen Titans are not.
So I have two responses to that. A, I feel sorry for Teen Titans fans because you guys have been burned a couple of times with major things. I mean, and in different directions, right? We got a show that's too kiddie, that's least common denominator, that's just pandering to children, that's not really for us. What we really wanted was a follow-up to the Teen Titans cartoon show. And then you made a really violent, nonsensical, just like grimdark for the sake of being grimdark show. It's the exact opposite of Teen Titans Go, but they're the same brand of angry about it, a lot of them.
Yeah, like, it's like they can only do DC Universe, or DC is a land of extremes apparently. Like they can't. Yeah. Like it has to be the darkest thing ever, or it has to be the lightest thing.
So
ever.
Can I use this as a segue to our third topic for this evening?
Oh. And I have one to pop right in.
And say that that CBS All Access has exactly the same problem with Star Trek. It either takes itself way too freaking seriously and is dark for no good reason, and is super ultra violent to the point of like beheadings and stuff in Star Trek. Gotta have F-bombs for no good reason. Is totally pandering to an audience and patting itself on the back for diversity in Star Trek, which should just be expected, or it's just a parody that makes fun of Star Trek, but puts Star Trek in the title. Nothing in between. The big thing that these two things seem to have in common, looking at all of the other new Trek, looking at Discovery and Picard, and Star Trek Lower Decks, is, because all we have, of course, is a 2-minute trailer. The one thing they have in common seems to be complete lack of subtlety. They're not going to have any of that.
Yeah, well, TH1 gives us a $2 super chat just to say, Lower Decks sounds like an After Dark topic. LOL.
Kind of, yeah. So, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. It is not a big deal that this is happening so late in the show because I don't have a ton to say about this. The internet is losing its, again, collective mind over the Star Trek Lower Decks trailer. And to that I say, looks exactly like what I thought it was going to be. It's a lot of people catching up that have not been paying attention to the news and stuff on this, which is fine. Who cares? This doesn't look like a thing I want to watch. I don't know who the audience is for. I don't know who's supposed to want to see the show, but I saw stills from this months ago. We knew that that one of the creators of Rick and Morty was working on this. We knew the premise of it, and I've read an interview with him. Yeah, this is the show that they clearly all along were making. The big mistake they made was thinking anybody would care about this, and not predicting that people would be kind of outraged by how stupid it looks and how it's not a thing that anybody really wants. So the premise for something like Lower Decks is a good one. Lower Decks, DJ, was the title of a Season 7 TNG episode that was finally a story all about some of the lowly crewmen on the Enterprise that nobody ever talks about. That, like, you have all these people living on this ship, but the important people, there's like 8 important people that ever do anything that really matter. We did have characters like Reginald Barclay, who were kind of this, where you'd get like occasionally a one-shot or a recurring crew member who wasn't like senior staff and privy to everything that would matter to stories and that would kind of get his own arc. But in Lower Decks, we had a group of them. And it's one of the best episodes of that show, and it's also one of the saddest, most tragic episodes of that show. Everybody do yourself a favor if you've not seen Lower Decks and go look at that. Not the show, but this whatever the show is. But the Season 7 episode of TNG. And I should also mention Season 7 is not a great season, so it's one of the absolute best episodes of that season. And so the idea of doing a whole show where you have the senior staff in the background and you actually have characters that are not nameless, but that the senior staff doesn't interact with that much, but actually matter and do interesting things, is a good premise. One of the silly things about really a lot of space opera, but also, of course, Star Trek, is that you have all these people that are on this ship, but none of them really matter that much. They don't really do anything. And also, your main characters have plot armor, and these people are expendable. So what if you did a series about the Expendables? expendable people. But the problem is that, like with everything else that's been made by this team for CBS All Access, under Secret Hideout, you've got a decent idea at the outset that's made by a company that doesn't really understand or care anything about Star Trek. So even if the people in charge of this show like and understand and respect Star Trek, they may not necessarily be able to present something to us that is what, Star Trek fans would really appreciate. If you're going to do comedy in Star Trek, it needs to be based on actual situations, and that's a point that was made by one of the guys at Midnight's Edge when they did their reaction to this, and I fully agree with that and wanted to make sure and mention that point here, because I also had that thought that, all the best comedy episodes of Star Trek were, here's this kind of wacky situation that we get ourselves into, not let's dumb down the material to make it silly and goofy. This is obvious. It's where we've been before with so much Star Trek parody, except this time it just has Star Trek in the title. And with just the 2 minutes of footage that we saw, it doesn't look very clever and creative at all. Now, it could be a Harley Quinn situation. There's every possibility that this ends up having a lot more story depth and character dimension than it looks like, and they just put all of the really obvious, kind of stupid jokes in the trailer. I'm not really expecting that, and I've already been burned twice by this iteration of Star Trek, so I don't want to, I have to have like a you already fooled me twice mentality about this, DJ. It does look like Star Trek lower humor, Star Trek lowest
lower brow.
Lower brow, lowest common denominator. Yeah, that's what it looks like. But I was kind of expecting that. All the characters look really archetypal. It's weird to think that this is supposed to somehow be in canon, because everything is made just like really silly and goofy, and it's hard to buy that these things are supposed to actually really be happening outside of a absurd parody kind of farcical context. But I will say I appreciate that the aesthetic is the actual Star Trek 24th Century aesthetic. This doesn't look like the, new Trek, J.J. Abrams universe. I suspect that's because since it's a comedy, they're not really concerned that much with what it looks like. And so they can kind of do whatever they want to as long as it is pandering to a group that is not currently watching their stuff. So they want the Rick and Morty crowd, so they made a Rick and Morty show and plastered Star Trek in the title, is what it looks like before I've actually seen it, right? And I just don't think they care as much as they do those other shows. It's like the pressure is not on as much, but they're still not probably going to let it be very smart. Maybe it will be. Maybe as a really absurd, farcical thing, it will be a good show. It just won't be what I want. Harley Quinn is like that. It's not what I want from a Batman thing, but it's wonderful. It's actually quite brilliant. This could turn into that. I also will say that I think it's probably going to be, even if it's not good, heads and shoulders above what we've had already. I really do. I think there's no way this is not the best Star Trek thing they've made so far, which will be really, really sad. But that's my big prediction, is that I won't like this, it won't be great, but it will make sense and be like 5 times better than anything they've made so far. Because at least it has the virtue of not being able to take itself too seriously. Because the other thing they're doing, obviously, is going, we don't like that people are saying the Orville is real Star Trek and we're not. So we're going to make what we think the Orville is in animation. That's pretty clearly what they've done. The irony there is that when we got the first trailers for the Orville, it looked like something like this. And then it turned out to be way smarter than that and filling a massive science fiction void, and frankly, a television void, and ended up being one of the absolute best things on television. And I just love it. and this is trying to write its coattails somehow. It's pretty clear that CBS is very unhappy that there's this other show not called Star Trek that's doing Star Trek better than they are, and that honestly is so much Star Trek and so not a parody that it should get sued, and I still can't believe it hasn't. But it's wonderful. It's just amazing that that show has managed to legally get away with what it's getting away with, under parody law, because it's not a parody at this point. It's really not. This is and says Star Trek. That's the bizarre irony. Anyway, so do we have any comments about this, DJ?
Some people are talking about it, or they were a while ago. I'm gonna have to scroll back. But most people are talking about other things, unfortunately. Good old gamers.
Well, let me mention, this is a thing nobody cares about, except Star Trek fans that are put off by it and people that are just really surprised that it exists. Let me say this real quick, too, DJ. Sorry, now that you mentioned that. Yeah. In that video that Midnight's Edge made, they mentioned that a couple of them had gone to a convention last year where there was a panel about this, and I forget which con it was. They said there were 5 people in the room for that panel. And I think they were, like, unveiling screenshots and stuff. Like, I think it was a panel unveiling things. And they said, and this is not like a tiny convention. This is like a major convention. Again, I forget which one. They said there were 5 people in that room. Nobody cares about the show.
That would be very scary for the people making the show.
And just because a trailer has like 2 or 3 million views, or however many it has on YouTube, does not mean that that people want to watch that show. In this particular case, I think it's because a lot of people have been making videos about this and blogs about how terrible it looks, and people want to see the train wreck. The first day it came up, I saw it. Pardon me. I think I forget who. Somebody sent me that video like very shortly after it posted. It was Malik, I think. Malik sent me that video. Thanks to you. And I watched it, and it had almost an even ratio of thumbs ups and thumbs downs. And I was like, well, this isn't surprising, but unfortunate for them. And a lot of negative comments. Right. The next day, like several million views. The comments were blocked out. You couldn't leave comments or look at them. They were disabled. And the thumbs up, thumbs down was turned off, which is very, very telling.
Yeah. Wow.
But they're going to pretend like this show is popular no matter, even if only the 5 people in that room at that convention are the ones watching the show.
Wow. Craziness. I'm sorry, man. I know that's your favorite franchise. That's a bummer.
I also have to mention, now that I'm thinking about it, and this is another thing that they brought up in that in that video, and I always have to mention that a lot of people don't like Midnight's Edge and don't think that you can count on things that they're mentioning. They've gotten a lot better at talking about when things are rumor and when you have to take things with a grain of salt. I don't agree with everything they say, absolutely. I think sometimes they're wrong about stuff, certainly, but they will report on things nobody else will, and I do exactly what they say. I take things with a grain of salt. So, yes, I still watch them some, but I just want to mention that for people that are like, God, why are you watching that, Cap? It's unreliable. I realize that it sometimes is, but this is a true thing that they mentioned, and I want to bring this up. They mentioned that Netflix and Amazon both passed on having this show, which is extremely telling for a couple of reasons. They have both been burned by New Trek. Netflix bought Discovery sight unseen and had no interest in Picard. Amazon got Picard and now won't take Lower Decks. And also keep in mind that they passed on an animated series, which is one of the only things that can be made really right now during a pandemic.
And Netflix takes everything.
They passed on Star Trek during a pandemic, when there's a dearth for new material.
Wow. Well, that's depressing for Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
Should we have a moment of silence for you, Cap?
No, you know what? I'm already over it. Like, this is the bed we gotta live in for a while.
So that's good.
It's gonna come out next month. I've watched all their other crappy things. I guess I'll watch this. I don't wanna, but then I still think it's gonna be better than anything else they've made. So in a weird way, this will be refreshing, even if it's terrible, because it will not be the same brand of terrible. That's the best I can hope for now. Is not the same brand of terrible.
I'll put it on the box. Refreshingly terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
John Ty.
I will make sure and include that in my review if that is the case.
That's not a bad catchphrase. In Kingdom Come, do you agree with Superman in making the penitentiary to train the vigilantes to be upstanding heroes?
Boy, it's tough to say. I am, and I know I keep mentioning this, but I really am gonna finally get this out soon. I have a video on this on this topic. I did a review with Kareem. I'm going to get that up. My opinion.
May answer this question in that.
Yeah, exactly. So watch that as my answer. I don't want to get into it real hard here, but that is it would have to be a very nuanced answer. It's the sort of thing where there are obviously massive ethical questions in what he's doing. It's also a really extreme situation, and how do you handle that without breaching your morality in any way whatsoever? Well, it's impossible. You're going to have to make some sort of compromise in that situation. So, not a thing I would usually condone, but I understand why that character does it. And more importantly, it's amazing that I get to the end of that book, and regardless of ethically ambiguous decisions Superman makes, I still think he's Superman. So that's the amazing thing about that book.
This is from Edward Bedore. Auralnauts, Star Wars Saga. Go watch it. It's gold. So I did some research real quick, and apparently this is a YouTube channel.
I love Auralnauts.
Star Wars series.
I have not seen those. I don't know if that's a real recent thing or not. DJ, you've heard me do their Bane rap before. That comes from Auralnauts. I'm Bane, yes, that's my name. If you say it too much, it becomes inane. I'm coming after you, Bruce Wayne. I'm smarter, stronger, clinically insane. That's Auralnauts. And yeah, their stuff is great. Their Kylo...
That was fire, Cap.
Their Kylo Ren stuff is awesome. It was fine. Man, the first time I heard that, I was like, I don't know what that means. Did I do a bad job? What is fire? Now I know what fire is.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Star Wars Episode 1 on Auralnauts is from March 2013, so apparently it's been a long-running series.
Oh, okay.
They just did one... Episode 9 in I don't know. Check it out. Just look up the YouTube channel.
I will have to go check those out.
Don't take my word.
Yeah, I would play some of it, but we don't have time.
I'm
Bane. Yes, that's my name. Bruce Wayne and Batman are totally the same. If you ask why I wear the mask, it's because I'm Bane.
All right, Lewis Cox. Hey, could there be a Metropolis PD show because of this? It could be cool.
This is your body without fiber. Sorry,
sorry, he wasn't done. Sorry, Lewis.
Sorry, I just can't. Steve, pizza. Anyway, so
doesn't Superman save everything in Metropolis? I guess would they just the cops just be cleaning up after Superman?
Yeah, would it just look like damage control? No, yeah. There would be a different sort of organized crime that you'd have to deal with. It would be people doing stuff beneath Superman's nose. The seemingly smaller crimes that Superman doesn't care about or doesn't seem to know about. The stuff that kind of goes under his radar. Or you could take it. You could almost look at it a different way, where like Superman is solving the smaller stuff, and it's the police that are actually dealing with the conspiracy and things. No, there is potentially a show there. Now, I would be much more interested, however, in and there was although this was going to be made by the Gotham people, so I'm glad it didn't end up happening, but there was a Metropolis show that was announced at one point that I'm pretty sure has been axed now. Correct me if you've seen an article that I haven't, where I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that got axed, and it was supposed to be a investigative reporting show, which, of course, would be what you'd want, like a Lois Lane-centered show. And, of course, now we're going to get that Superman and Lois show on CW, which may do some of that, but I have written that whole continuity off kind of at this point. I'm not saying I won't try that pilot and review it, but I'm not expecting anything from that. And I don't like their Lois from what we've seen so far. But anyway, I digress. You could have some police drama thrown in with that, obviously. If you're doing investigative reporting, the police are going to be highly involved. So it would be really easy to get Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer and characters like that in that show, even if it was focused mostly on the newspaper side.
Yeah. So you definitely do a Metropolis show. He specifically says Metropolis PD, but yeah, you could still. There's still something there.
Yeah. OAW Entertainment. That's what I should have said. Pizza. Gotham isn't even known for it.
Carl Maxey. Cap, would you be more on board for the Gotham PD show if they Make a shiny shoes reference.
Well, that would just be the icing on the cake. I want them to take pot shots at Gotham. That would be amazing. Wouldn't it be awesome if that show does this, like, really subtle and complex and sophisticated shoes motif in the background that culminates into something amazing at the end of the first season? Because Gotham was accidentally not even realizing it was doing a shoe motif, and then it just dropped it because it did not realize it was happening. But no, that would make me more on board. I'm on board so far. Everything, what little we know so far, it sounds like that could be amazing. And there's not a lot of competition right now, but could very easily be the best superhero thing on television. Or at least comic-based thing. I mean, there's Umbrella Academy and The Boys and things I haven't watched yet that people say really great things about. But as far as mainstream Big Two, Marvel and DC, not a lot of competition right now. Would not be hard for this to be the best thing happening on TV.
Yeah. Umbrella Academy comes out this month. I gotta rewatch season 1. I haven't even.
We were supposed to review that. We really need to do that.
Oh, Dr. Seuss over here.
We gotta do that.
From what I'm hearing online, the Star Trek Lower Decks show seems to be a ripoff of Rick and Morty. Yeah, we already talked about that. That's the problem with.
That's why they made it.
Yeah.
Very clearly, they're just taking something that is something else and making the obvious Star Trek jokes. The really standard, is your phaser on stun or kill? Oh, it was on kill the whole time. Oops, I would have killed you. And then there's a scene where the girl is just raising a blast shield up and down and going, blast shield. It's like and also blast shields are a Star Wars thing. And then I don't know. And then there's a joke about like having to clean the waste in the holodeck, and hilarious.
Hey, Star Trek 09 canonized all of Star Wars things in Star Trek, so that's fine.
Yeah, but this at least looks like it's in the same universe as TNG. It has accoutrograms. I want to be excited about that, but I can't. Cry.
Oh, man. And we're sad again. Carl Maxey, why can't DC/Warner Bros. Use Batman TAS, Superman TAS, and Justice League TAS as a baseline for making movies and live-action TV shows?
Well, I think they can. They're just not gonna, cause they're not dark and gritty enough. At least from the outset. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's not like Bruce Timm is the only good DC stuff there is, and that's an animated thing. Like, I don't think I would even think to go, okay, let's look at the Bruce Timm verse and try to make a live action version of this. I don't even know that would translate well, because 50% of what people would recognize from that is the aesthetics of it, right? I would just try to make smart and clever and character-driven DC stuff using mostly the traditional versions and backgrounds of those characters, and then crib from everything that's good, including that stuff. And that's traditionally how good DC stuff in other media has been made, right? Or in media all around, where we go, okay, animated series did this really great version of Mr. Freeze. We cannot get away from that now because it's the version that people like. It's the version that makes him kind of sympathetic. So we always go back now, or very often, to the Mr. Freeze with a wife that he's trying to save, and Harley Quinn comes from that show, and so like we're already borrowing a lot from Bruce Timm all over the place. You just take the best versions of things and sandwich it all together. And if there's not a great version of something, you make a new one, just like that show did. I also don't think we should be afraid to do that. And I have never agreed with Eric, by the way. He's not here to defend himself when he says that you should never make up new characters in other media based on comics. I don't agree with that. Because Batman Animated Series did it with Harley Quinn, and I know he doesn't like Harley Quinn, but look how popular that character has gotten. I think there's room to grow. The idea that you should never have a character that's not at least named something that was already in the comics just because you're adapting from comics, I don't know. I've never really agreed with that. So I think you can also make up some of your own stuff and go your own way too. You don't want to do so much of that you're like, why are we even claiming we're adapting something? I don't want to do that, but
yeah,
to be like, 89 shouldn't have had Eckhart because there's not a character in comics called Eckhart. I don't know about that.
Yeah. William Parcell, With the comic book industry on the verge of collapse, what do you think it'd take to bring it back after it happens?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And we did a show about this a couple of weeks ago where I tried to sort of kind of answer this question. And I hemmed and hawed a lot and said, I don't totally know. I think we're making a lot of the same mistakes that we were before the crash. If you want to call it that, or before the quarantine, which massively hurt the comics industry, of course. I don't think now is the time for $5 comics. And I have recently had to buy some issues that were $5 and not any longer than your standard issues. So that's where we're going, DJ, which I've been predicting for years. I'm surprised it took this long, to be honest with you. I think we need to split the number of books that each company has in half. That is a thing that I think Todd McFarlane has suggested. I've read a couple of articles by guys in the industry that have suggested things that would help, and I think he said that. I think he's right about it. I think giving away more digital comics was his idea, like major stuff that people care about. Let somebody read the first issue digital and then sell them the rest physical is not a bad idea. I agree with that too. Just what exactly would it take to get it back to where it was and then to try to boom it again, because it has not been a great... Clearly, when your entire industry falls apart in a week because you don't seem to have any money in the bank, that's very telling about where your industry is. And that's really unfortunate. So it's hard to say. It's also hard to say, this is a really sad thing to say, how much of this is simply... It's really hard to get new people into that industry because people don't want to read, but also because it's daunting, and also because, not to put too fine a point on it, it has the reputation of now being too mired in politics. And I don't just mean to say that the books are too political. I mean to say that the industry, all I hear people talk about these days with comics is how politically minded that as an industry has gotten. So I'm not just talking about the stories. I'm talking about how a lot of people have latched onto that industry and told it what it's supposed to be making. And that's been really, and I think that's turned a lot of people off. There's a lot of people that just see that as an industry as one of the most vitriolic now. And it's really sad that that's happened to it. But it doesn't look fun to people anymore, and you have to make comics fun again. I'm not saying this shouldn't be about anything. I'm not saying you can't ever make a political point in a comic book. People keep coming after me for this, and that's not what I'm saying, folks. It's really not. I'm just saying that there has to be some fun there, too. And I'm not saying there's not any in the actual stories, but comics have the reputation now of not being a fun thing to be in. And that's going to kill it. That, more than anything, is going to kill it.
People are agreeing with you in the chat. Jedi Knight says, "Preach." Yeah,
well, thanks. You don't have to, and I don't mean to yell at folks. I'm just saying that I think whenever I bring this up, folks get confused and think that I'm saying that comics should never be political. And comics having stories about politics or even making a political point are different than pandering and are different than what sometimes appears to be, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's, propaganda, where they're just preaching to the choir or telling you what you're supposed to think about something, which is different than stories about politics or with and also a point that is influenced by your politics or even about your politics are different than only making a thing for a political agenda and not caring whether the story is told well or whether the characters will resonate with anyone. Those are also different things. That is hurting the industry, and the reputation that is happening, even if you don't agree with it, is hurting the industry.
But yeah, to answer the original question, like, if superheroes being the biggest thing ever,
DJ's like, we gotta get back on track. Cap has lost it again. He's just
no. I'm gonna move on. But I just want to say, like, it's kind of depressing that superheroes have been the biggest thing ever for years now, and if that didn't get comics back on the map, it's kind of hard to think that anything could.
Yeah.
At this point.
And it looks really dire, and I hate saying that. Obviously, I love comics as a medium, and I love that industry, and I've talked to a lot of people in that industry, and I feel for them, and I hate that it's going the way it is, but I gotta call it like I'm seeing it. It seems tough. Although,
to completely contradict myself, maybe that is the thing that comics need, because maybe that if superheroes dying out in other media like television and movies, people would have no choice but to read comics to get that superhero fix. So maybe that's
true, but we're not anywhere near that happening yet.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for a long time. So
I mean, somebody made the point that it's really interesting that comics are dying, and yet in other media they're making billions of dollars. But there's never been a direct correlation, and this is a thing that the industry itself still doesn't understand. I mean, like, a decade after the MCU, so like, well after a decade, or not well after, but more than a decade after the MCU starts, Marvel and DC still don't understand that that the movie-going audience is not necessarily going to read their books. There's never been a massive correlation where, like, look how well the current series of Batman is doing because Batman was in a movie. There are exceptions, but it's almost always specific books. It's almost always when there's something adapted from a very specific source, and usually it's like a one-shot sort of thing. Like, Watchmen sold gangbusters because of the Watchmen movie. It's because there was one thing and it wasn't hard to get into.
All right.
And yes, I apologize for my soapbox.
We're over our hour.
we are. How many more super chats do we have, and do we have any chance at knocking them out, or do we need to save some of them for Thursday? Which I would hate to do, but we do need to get going.
We only have 3 more at the moment.
Okay. Folks, don't throw us any more super chats if you can, because we have got to finish up here. But thanks so much for being here. And,
yeah. We have another show in 2 days, so hold on to it. We will get to it.
hold on to your questions. We'll be right back with you in just a couple of days. But I just want to say thanks a lot for the turnout tonight, and thanks for all the great questions. And thanks for the variety of questions. And also, thanks a bunch for interacting with us so much about the specific topics that we were doing tonight. A lot of really nice back and forth with the 3 stories that I kind of thought would just go half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we'd talk about other random things, and it turned into a couple hours. Mostly the 3 things I put in the title. And I could have saved one for Thursday, but I figured it would come up anyway.
Yeah, no, people seem to really like when we do these like theme shows. Not necessarily a theme, but just kind of like newsy shows, so it's working really well. And you guys are, I mean, we were hesitant to say if we could even keep a Tuesday show going 2 times a week, and lately it's been just as big, if not bigger, than the Thursday show.
It has, so and that's why we haven't done as many commentaries as we were going to do on Tuesdays. It's felt almost necessary some weeks. I mean, last week we did that random food show for no reason, but felt like doing that.
Maybe that's why we're getting so many questions tonight, because people
are like, I didn't care about that show. You're finally doing something I want to watch. All right, anyway, all right, let's knock out those last 3 and call it a night. Right. Go ahead.
William Parcell, have you noticed how most Marvel heroes no longer have a secret identity, while pretty much all DC heroes still have one? What do you think? Why do you think this is?
And this is a thing we've talked about before. It's interesting. In the movies, it's hard not to say that some of that might have to do with FaceTime for actors. And it is easier to get away with the whole I don't want to have to wear a mask too much thing if you just don't have a secret identity. And also, it's just Iron Man set the precedent, right? Because it's like in the comics,
that was the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and like he starts off as in the comics a character with a secret identity, and actually keeps that for a long time. I think a lot of people don't realize that now because they're used to Iron Man as an outed superhero or a public superhero, but it was already very much the norm at that time in the comics, so we got us there pretty quick, at the end of that movie. And then that just set that precedent, right? I think some of it might have been they're trying to go their own way and avoid certain superhero tropes. I think that was part of the reason we did that. And so when I said earlier there's not a direct correlation between movies and comics, I mean in sales. Obviously, and this is sometimes a problem, there absolutely is when it comes to stories, because very often DC and Marvel DC not as much, but will do a lot of the same things that the movies are doing to try to create a sense of synergy, and so that if somebody who's watching the movies comes over to the comics, they'll kind of know what they're looking at. So I think that part of the reason we're not seeing as many like new heroes with secret identities, and I don't know if this is true, if there's a lot of old superheroes that suddenly just don't have them, but the reason Marvel's not as into that these days is probably partly because of the movies. It is also, however, I will say, a natural place to wind up. And was happening somewhat on its own in comics without the movies. Again, Iron Man being an example. Fantastic Four, the first family of Marvel being public superheroes very early on, of course.
Yeah, Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting that they were the ones that were known for not having a secret identity, and then when they finally come into the MCU, it's not gonna be special at all.
Nobody's going to know who they are. Yeah. If they start out, wouldn't it be really ironic if they have secret identities for like a movie or two, and then like finally out themselves out later? Yeah. But with Marvel, it's more natural for the heroes there to not have secret identities because they're not the same kind traditionally of, as I've said a lot, the iconic like larger than life kinds of characters that DC is. And DC has traditionally, again, more modern comics where DC is trying to be more like Marvel, notwithstanding, traditionally, DC has been able to get away with not being as realistic. It's not as much about realism. Marvel has relatively always been more about trying to imagine superheroes in the real world. Still, of course, with the sense that at the end of the day, usually the heroes win and the universe is more on their side. It is heightened. It is not exactly the shades of gray that you get in real life, but a lot more shades of gray in the beginning in the 60s than what you had with the Golden Age, which really set them apart and is why a lot of people gravitated toward Marvel and appreciated them because it felt like they were reading novels about superheroes more than just like a story each month that was kind of the same thing over and over again. More of what you were getting in some of their competitors' books. And so it naturally makes sense that Marvel would gravitate more toward not having secret identities, because in real life, how long could you really keep one? And they were thinking about those kinds of things at the time more than DC was. Obviously, these days, we can't get away from superhero deconstruction and the idea of what if they really existed in the real world.
Yeah, I was going to say, more so than just like, maybe the actor's FaceTime thing is playing a little bit of a role, but it makes more sense for their characters. Like Thor's like an alien from another planet. Like the secret identity with him was always weird. And like Hulk, how in the world would Bruce Banner keep his secret identity when he just like breaks out of control all the time?
Well, the thing is, and that was the TV show. He would always have to just leave and go to some other town.
Yeah, like I think it makes sense for most of their characters. Hawkeye doesn't wear a mask in there because he's just a government agent. But the big one, obviously, that it kind of sucks for because you want to see him struggle with the secret identity of Spider-Man, and we had that, and then I was super bummed with the end of Far From Home. But who knows? Maybe they'll explain that somehow, and maybe they won't go that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, two more from John Ty, real quick. What if at the end of The Dark Knight, Batman and Gordon didn't create the lie behind Harvey Dent? So what would have happened?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's hard to rewrite movies, especially because that was kind of a curveball that movie threw me, and I sort of liked the cliffhanger of it all. But I mean, a little heavy-handed the way it was spelled out for us at the end, thematically. But
and you didn't like where it went in the next one, where it kind of
certainly not
all the problems.
Yeah, well, and it's also hard to say what Rises would have looked like if that movie had ended differently. But if Batman doesn't accept the lie, what the movie is telling us is that if they don't do that, that city tears itself apart because the only thing holding it together is the hope that Dent created. I don't know how much I buy that.
Yeah.
That's just a question. Like, realistically, do you buy that city just descends into absolute complete chaos, or would it just kind of go back to sort of where it was before? I guess you could say they took down, I never thought of this before, they took down a lot of the organized crime, Dent and Gordon, Batman. And so you'd have a void to be filled, right? Like, there is that. And so, if you lose, because the notion of just, we lost the hope and so the city falls apart is kind of dopey, and it is kind of just
it wouldn't even be made today. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine a story today where a politician joined everyone together. Like, it sounds ridiculous in our climate today.
That's kind of, that's a good point. But it also just sounds like a theme over story where it's like, but what would actually happen though? Let's get a little more down to earth, because I could see somebody in the comments saying, well, no, Cap, you don't understand. The idea is that without hope, the city falls apart. Yeah, but why though? Let's be kind of down to earth about this. I think I think what you would have is Batman having to do what I think a lot of people wanted to see him do in the next movie, which is just go after a lot of like small time things and not worry as much about organized crime, because now there's just there's more chaos because everybody's trying to fill that void. In that way, I think it does kind of make sense that you would sort of have that, and would be really sad to see Dent tarnished the way he was. I also don't think that people would believe in Batman as much. Or would they believe in him more? I don't know. I guess that's kind of the big question, is what would the perception of Batman be after that?
And there's the big thing that you never thought about of Watchmen, but now that we have the show, we think of it. It's like, not everyone would just believe that, Not everyone. You would have people that believed that Dent was framed, and then you would have people that believed that Batman was bad. That's the thing, is like, everybody just kind of takes it for truth what they said, and that's not exactly how it happens in the real world. There's always doubt, like with Rorschach's journal, like we talked about when we did Watchmen.
Yeah, I always thought that was a little bit strange. This is neither here nor there, but I also always liked the idea that Dent wasn't actually dead. I mean, like, because when that movie came out, I heard a lot of people say, well, we didn't see a body after he seemed to have died, and then they just cut to a casket. Like, what if that whole thing was a conspiracy? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that movie is telling us he's dead. I don't think they will do that. But I also think it would have been kind of interesting if they had. They were like,
it would have been super dark if they had to like keep him locked up so that the truth didn't get out.
Yeah, Eric's idea was always he's in Blackgate, and then when Bane lets all the prisoners out of Blackgate, he's just there, and we just see him show up. How nuts would that have been?
He's like a paraplegic Two-Face because he fell out of like a 3-story building, and oh man.
Yeah. Okay. So what's our last super chat?
Last one. Last super chat from John Tyle. What do you think about DC going to a comic book store for their comic distribution?
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and my opinion has changed slightly on this because I've learned some new things about it. In a couple weeks, I'm supposed to have William from my comic shop on, and he's going to talk about that with us and his perspective as a comic shop owner about from Elite Comics here in Kansas City, about what it's like having multiple distributors. And I will say, I don't want to make too many of his points for him, but just because you brought that up, I will say that because I asked him, I said, I'm hearing a lot of people say, because I've been not sure about it. I've heard a lot of people say, isn't it great that we now have competition? And he says, well, it would be, but that's not what's happening. You don't have two distributors that the comic shops each are allowed to choose which one they want to go to get different product. If you want the stuff that Diamond has, Marvel and everybody else, you have to go to Diamond. And if you want DC, you have to go to DC's distributor now. All it does to the comic shops is give them less of a discount, because they're not able to buy as much, altogether in bulk. So it splits what they purchase, and it actually hurts the shops. So it doesn't sound, at least from his perspective, and I tend to agree with him now that I know of that, it doesn't sound like the great news for the retail that we thought it was, because it's not actually competition. It's just two distributors that are splitting the market. If it was a new distributor that came in and both of them had the same things, that's competition. But this actually isn't, so that sounds unfortunate. But he's going to go more into detail and talk about that when we have him on the show. Thanks for asking about that.
Oh. And with that, folks, we are done. We made it through.
Man, I don't know how we got through it. But everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you had a good time. We certainly did. I feel like we went for 2.5 hours, but we covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, it was a great show. Awesome questions, guys. Keep it coming, man. That was great. Really appreciate you guys.
You guys are wonderful. We'll see you again on Thursday for another episode of the Captain Logan Show. And then, just so everybody knows, next week I am going to be out of town, so I'll be taking the week off. And I may have some pre-recorded videos to post for you. I'm not sure yet. It just depends on how much time I have to edit stuff. I have some things that I can post, but I don't know if the channel will be off or it will just be me. But I won't have live shows next week. But we'll be including Star Trek Club and including our Tuesday and Thursday show. But I will be back the week after with lots more stuff. Me and DJ, looking forward to it, of course. And Really appreciate you guys. I was Captain Logan, and that was our wonderful chat moderator, producer, and thumbnail maker, DJ Martinez.
Bye, guys. You kept me busy tonight. I appreciate it. It was awesome.
Bye, folks.